Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei left his hometown after war with Trihexa? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Nefarious doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. It was a cool evening as a train was unloading its last few individuals off said train for the night. Only a few people were on the train, but one person definitely stood out from the passengers. That person was a tall man with short dark brown hair that had red tints at the end of it. His eyes were dark brown but seemed to be cold, as if he was telling people to leave him alone. His attire looked similar to that of a delinquent of sorts, as he wore a long, black, high-collared, and tattered cloak with shoulder plates. Around his waist was a simple belt. The man also wore loose-fitting dark pants, along with some simple boots that were good for fighting. The man was carrying a duffel bag of sorts while leaving the train station as he looked at the name of the town he was in, Shinto Tao. "It seems nicer than my old town, that's for sure," the man said as he looked at his left arm and saw that it was covered in crimson scales. "You'd be surprised what happened to me after the war in these past few months, Drake. Heh. You'd probably ask me if I knew what I was doing." The man chuckled as he recalled what his old friend would say to him until he decided to head to his new destination. "I need a drink, within Shinto Tao." "Man, that hit the spot," Kazuhana said as she wiped her mouth after drinking the bottle of sake. Kaguri sighed at the wind Sekire. "Why are you like this sometimes, Kazuhana? You know you can't keep drinking so much, or else your liver will explode," Kaguri said as Kazuhana smiled with a tiny blush before speaking to him. "Well, it's the best way to drown one's sorrows, and what better way to feel alive than drink until you collapse," Kazuhana said as Kaguri sighed before the door to the bar was opened. The man walked into the bar and sat down a bit far from the woman. Kaguri and Kazuhana were surprised by his appearance before Kaguri went over to him and asked, "Good evening, sir. What can I get you?" "Water." Kaguri nodded and went to fill up the glass while Kazuhana couldn't help but feel turned on by the look in his eyes before she waved at him. "Hi there, handsome. What's a guy like you doing here alone?" Kazuhana asked as she sauntered over to him and pressed her chest on his left arm. She was shocked to see no reaction from him. "Get your tits off me, skank. I'm not in the mood for your games," the man said as Kazuhana felt offended by the remark before speaking to him. "And what makes you think I am one? You act like you'd sleep with any guy if they buy you a drink and promise you a good time. Just piss off. I don't feel like sleeping with a slut," the man said as Kazuhana began to clench her fists in rage. Kaguri gave the man his glass of water before the man drank it in one gulp. "I've seen your type, lady, and let me tell you, I'm not impressed," the man said as he turned to look at Kazuhana, whose eyes widened as she looked at them. As a Sekire, their species can look into the souls of others and see their emotional pain, so when Kazuhana looked into those eyes, she saw the same emotion she felt when her feelings weren't returned to her by the man she loved. Sadness. Kazuhana unclenched her fists as she sat next to him and sighed. "I'm actually a virgin, believe it or not. I act like that because we're alike. Broken-hearted by someone we loved." The man was shocked by this as he chuckled as he spoke to her. "Heh. Well, if you are like me, then you must have had some therapy to deal with, since I had a messed up brain because of the bullshit I had to deal with. It got worse when I was betrayed by the woman I loved, who not only cheated on me but also berated me while making out and ing with her boyfriend." The man clenched his left fist tightly as he looked at his naked ring finger and sighed. "Would you believe me if I told you that we were engaged to be married?" Kazuhana and Kaguri were surprised by this before the man nodded. "It's true. Want to hear my story?" Kazuhana nodded and listened to how the man began to regale his tale of how he was just a normal, perverted, but honest boy who desired to have a harem to treat as the queens of his world with love, respect, and affection. The man said his name was Issei Hayadu, and how he was killed and betrayed by the first girl who said she loved him and left a scar on his heart. Then he spoke about how he was able to heal thanks to his friends and learning to be open and love again. Still, all that resulted in Issei being betrayed by the woman he wished to propose to, his ex-girlfriend Rias Gremery. Still, sadly, the dagger stabbed his heart again when he saw that Rias was already at the restaurant with another man, whom she met at her college and seemed to be very close since Issei followed them to a love hotel where the two made love and Rias said she would dump Issei. It hurt, But when Issei went to see his other girlfriends, he saw that each of them cheated on him and betrayed the promise they made to each other. The twisting of the dagger was so painful that Issei nearly turned into a dragon and went on a rampage. Still, he was able to control himself as he decided that they didn't love him anymore or wanted him, so he decided to leave his old town for college and make a new life for himself. Which brings me to here. I'm here to restart my life from zero. Heh. So let me know what you think. Am I crazy or just some depressed fool? Issei asked as he drank another glass of water before Kazuhana reached out for his left hand and took it. No. Issei then looked at Kazuhana as she spoke to him. You did nothing wrong. You are telling the truth, and you are not a bad man, Kazuhana said as Issei chuckled at him. Yeah, right. Apparently, I must have ed up somehow because my life changed forever and went to hell. So tell me how I'm not a bad man when the people I loved betrayed me after I sacrificed my body, my soul, my heart, my life. Issei roared as Kazuhana and Kaguri were shocked by his aura and strength due to the dent he placed on the counter. Issei stopped himself as he looked at the counter, took some money out, and placed it on the counter. I'm sorry. This amount should be enough to fix it. I'll be leaving now, Issei said as he was about to leave until a hand caught him. Hey Issei. Mind escorting a girl home? Issei blinked at the girl before he sighed at his kind heart telling him to help her. Fine, Issei said as he carried Kazuhana to the Izumo Inn, thanks to her directions. He was greeted by a woman at the entrance smiling at them. Oh, hello there. Thank you for bringing Kazuhana here. My name is Miya-sama. It's nice to see you, Miya said as Issei introduced himself and placed the drunk woman on the couch. Miya offered to have Issei stay for the night. No. I don't want to trouble you at all, Asama-san. Nonsense. It's really cold out tonight, and it's impossible to find a room this late. Please stay the night, Miya said as Issei tried to argue back, but his stomach growled as Miya giggled at his flustered expression. I suppose I can stay for the night. Wonderful. I believe you'll love it here, Miya said as Issei followed her to the kitchen and asked if he could help her, but Miya just directed Issei to the kitchen table. She heated some leftover soup and gave it to Issei. Little did Issei know that tonight would be the start of a new beginning in life. Issei then thanked Miya for the room as he sighed as he heard her leave him be. Issei then looked at a full moon and felt a sense of nostalgia form in his heart as he recalled that night that changed his fate. Who would have thought that the goddess of love would save me when I was truly at my lowest point? Issei said as he closed his eyes and recalled the day he nearly took his life after his heart was destroyed into pieces by their words and actions. Flashback. A few months ago, Issei's heart broke as he refused to go on a rampage, so instead, he decided to destroy an entire mountain away from civilization to release his rage. He then roared in rage and sorrow after feeling his heart break from the knife twisting his heart. Is this how they really feel about me? They never loved me and just pretended to care about me. Zenobia and Kaneko, I believe, but Irina and Asia too? After all we've been through together? Issei yelled in his head as he looked at his left arm and cried again as he roared once more while pondering what he did to deserve being alone, and if this was his fate. Issei stayed on that mountain for the night until a voice spoke to him from a person he wasn't expecting to see, the Greek goddess of love, Aphrodite. Issei Hayadu. I'm here to stop you from taking your life, Aphrodite said as she walked towards Issei. He kept his head down and spoke to her. What's the point? The war is over. I lost the boosted gear due to Drag and the past users sacrificing their lives for me. My mind was finally doing better, and I was feeling happy, but now, Issei said as he clenched his fists before glaring at Aphrodite. Now, when I wanted to propose to the woman who saved my life and the one who I loved decided to betray me by cheating on me and lying to my face for months. My other girlfriends lied and cheated on me, and all for what? Replacing me after what I did for them. The time we spent together, the memories we shared, and all the dates meant nothing to them? Aphrodite approached Issei as he kept talking. Was this my fate, huh? Was I destined to be alone and be another pawn in the game of power? What is the point of living anymore when I lost my title and my partner, as well as the ones I loved? Issei yelled as Aphrodite kept walking towards him until she took him into her arms and gently rubbed his back. You did nothing wrong, Issei. They are the ones who chose to betray you. You have nothing to fear, for I do not see you for the boosted gear. I see you as someone who's in pain from having been betrayed twice by the women he loved and cared for so much that seeing their betrayal pushed you this far," Aphrodite said as she clenched her fists while keeping Issei close to her. "I won't let you kill yourself. If you need a reason to live, then I'll give you a reason," Aphrodite shouted as Issei's eyes widened with tears still in his eyes before he looked up at her as Aphrodite spoke to him. "Do not close your heart off from everyone. There are still other people who still care about you and would cry if you died. Some will appear to fill and fix your broken heart, but promise me that you won't kill yourself and let this pain keep you from being happy." "I'll try, but how?" Issei asked. Aphrodite said nothing at first. She then at the top of his head before hugging him close as a mother would a child. Live your own life, Issei Hayato. Don't live as Issei Hayato, the Red Dragon Emperor, or Pawn of Gremory. Live as yourself and learn to love again. The ones who still love you are out there, and some will fill the hole in your heart. Trust me when I say many love you, Issei. So please keep this promise," Aphrodite said as Issei clenched his fist as he struggled to keep their words away before nodding. "Okay. I promise I'll live." And it was on that day that the broken man who was once a pillar of strength and inspiration was now a person who thought he had nothing left to live for. But it was the words of a goddess who was able to save him from ending his life. And flashback. "I made a promise, and I'll try. I'll try to live for myself," Issei said as he relaxed his body on the futon before closing his eyes, not knowing that his life would always involve the supernatural in some way. "Tonight is the night that a game shall begin, with many birds being released into the city, and now it's time for the game to begin. Let's see how the gods will favors the destined ones of the Ashikabi," Minaka said as he stood on top of a clock tower as the bell rang to signal that it was now midnight and the start of a new era. "Ko Town, I'm still not sure this is a good idea, Kiba. Didn't Issei explicitly tell us not to mention anything to the others?" Gasper asked as Kiba sighed and replied as he finished writing a letter of sorts. "Look, I know we promised Issei not to tell Surzex, Azazel, or any of the higher-ups, but that doesn't mean we can't inform, say certain others who still care for Issei and haven't seen him for months," Kiba said as he knew that Ravel was busy in the underworld, helping the lower-class devils rebuild and helping many other families who lost their loved ones in the war. Issei helped out as well, and the low-class devils were happy to have their protector, and hero help them even though they didn't ask. Ravel and Issei spent some time together before Issei went to his therapy sessions, which allowed him to be more in control of his emotions. Kuroka had been helping out as an ambassador for the Yukai faction. She was helping Kunu become the next leader of the faction due to Yasaka losing most of her strength after the battle with Trihexa and Rise of Him. Kunu definitely hit her growth spurt once she hit 16 and definitely grew up to be a beautiful young woman. Rosweiss went back to the Norse faction to make sure that there were no traces of Trihexa's return and that the last of the Chaos Brigade was destroyed. Chow Chow was even given a pardon and was giving back to the community and supernatural world by helping hunt down the remnants of the organization along with Jean, who was rehabilitated, thanks to Gabriel herself and thankful for chatting with Issei after his therapy sessions. Kiba was happy that Issei was getting some help and that the war was over as the factions were healing after Trihexa's defeat. He was even in a relationship now with Tsubaki, with a little help from Gasper and Issei, who pushed him to man up and talk to her, which was just what he needed since when Kiba confessed they also had a first, thanks to a small nudge from his friends. Gasper, on the other hand, was doing well and doing some more training, but Kiba had a feeling that there was more to Gasper after than met the eye, especially when he heard Gasper whispering something in his sleep that made the night blush. I know the girls probably didn't say anything to their families and comrades, and who could blame them? Imagine the ramifications that would occur should their secret be revealed to the world. Please think of how the factions would be at war with each other should they learn that the biblical faction didn't know about this. Issei was and is still the pillar of strength and support for the biblical faction, even if the boosted gear is no more. His skills, his kind heart, and his power are still within him and have made an impact in our comrades' factions. Kiba said as he knew that the Greek, Norse, and Yukai faction would be enraged at the biblical faction for not knowing about this, and then the girls would be the cause of it, all because they betrayed the one person who not only saved them multiple times, but helped them become the person they are today. I know, but I care about Issei's wishes, and he didn't want anyone to know besides us. He trusts us, but won't we betray him if we do this? Gasper said as Kiba sighed before replying, I know, but a part of me is telling me to do this. Not just for Issei but for the other girls as well. And I know that deep down, you want to tell them as well, even though you wish to respect his wishes. Kiba said as Gasper stuttered a bit but still nodded before Gasper left Kiba to finish his letter to the recipient. Gasper then went to his room and clutched the shirt on him before going to the balcony and letting the moonlight shine down on him as he recalled his latest memory of Issei before he departed to his future college. Flashback. A few days ago. Do you really have to go? Shinto Tao is a large place, and Tokyo University is very difficult to get into, Gasper said, as he didn't want Issei to leave before Issei stopped his packing. As he then turned around to the damper and hugged the small boy in his arms. Yes, I do, Issei said before looking at Gasper's eyes and saw them filling with water before Issei said his reasons. I wanted to kill myself because of my heartache and pain when I felt that heartbreak. It felt even worse than when Rainier killed me since I thought they really did love me and care about me. But after I saw the truth, I could feel my heart being shattered into many pieces. Gasper cried as he heard how Issei was saved by Aphrodite, who told him that others still loved him and would heal his heart and that he should live and love himself. So once I heard from my first college of my choice, I was so ecstatic that this might be a sign of a new chance at a new life. So that's why I want to take this chance for a clean slate and become a better person, Issei said as Gasper then cried out. But you are already a better person. I don't want to lose the one that I love and help me escape my fears. Gasper cried as Issei pulled out a handkerchief and wiped Gasper's eyes before his forehead. Gasper. I do love you, but this is what I need to get away from all of this. For too long, I've always done what Rias and the many factions ordered me, so now that I'm a high-class devil, I want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. I make my own mistakes. Learn from them. Fulfill a dream that I wanted to do before I wanted to be a harem king. I know this sounds like I want to leave you, but you're mistaken. This means that I want to build a better future for myself, and those who still love me and make them proud of who I am now. Not Issei Hayadu, the Red Dragon Emperor, but as myself, Issei said as he had Gasper's forehead again before hugging the crying Daphne so much that Gasper slowly hugged him back and nodded in agreement with him. I understand, but promise me you won't forget me, Gasper said as Issei smiled back and replied, Of course. After all, who am I to leave a cute girl like you and forget you? Issei said as Gasper giggled and laughed. Issei laughed with him until Gasper then placed a hand on top of Issei's own before asking him, Will you promise never to forget me and talk to us? I promise. It'll be wrong to leave you two alone since I know Kiba is staying here with you. And one last thing, when I graduate from high school, will you take me on a real date? With the real me? Gasper asked as Issei smiled and nodded. Of course. After all, a beautiful young woman like yourself would make any man feel lucky to be with you. Issei said as Gasper blushed and smiled. She felt her heart beat loudly until the Daphne snuggled in Issei's arms. It's really thanks to you and Valerie that I am able to be my real self. Plus, you really made me feel happy when you snuggled with me and copped a feel, Gasper said as Issei stuttered with a faint blush, trying to deny the claim. But this just made Gasper smile as she was happy to be able to help Issei feel better and could see that despite Issei's changes in confidence, a part of his human self is still in there. Thus, a promise was made that night between a man and woman for the future. End flashback. And I can't wait to hear from you again, Gasper said as she let her wings unfurl. She then took off into the night sky and flew around, enjoying the feel of the cool breeze hitting her skin while pondering how Issei was doing as well as the others. Gasper has been working on becoming a beautiful and elegant lady who would not only wow Issei but also shower him with so much love that the pieces of his broken heart would be put back together. Meanwhile, Kiba finished his letter and placed it in the envelope before sending it through a portal to its destination. I'm sorry, Gasper. I'm sorry, Issei, but I can't just keep this a secret and let them think they can get away with hurting my friend, Kiba said as he then headed to his room to rest for the evening. Meanwhile, in the great palace of Olympus, Aphrodite was watching over Issei and smiled as she gasped at one of the women who were unknown to her and was reacting to Issei. This aura is a strange one since I've never felt a creature with this kind of power before. Aphrodite is the goddess of love who can see powerful connections between soulmates and help couples with their relationship issues, should there be any. That is why she was curious about why the 6 girls decided to cheat on Issei even though they'd had such strong love. Aphrodite went to the file she had on the girls and looked at each of them carefully. They could see that their feelings for Issei started to change after the war when they were separated from each other due to their new lives and how they were being accustomed to the changes that came with them. Aphrodite could understand this since life does throw many curveballs into the mix. But as she looked at Akino and Rias's file, she could see that the boy the two were dating had apparently been in their classes and the girls were helping him get used to his sacred gear. So it started as helping a boy get used to his new power. But now they decided to get in the sack with him? Aphrodite asked herself as she couldn't understand their relationship before seeing how Zenobia was happy due to her boyfriend not minding to get down and dirty in the sack for babies. Irina and Asia shocked her the most since she could tell that the two of them had honest to kind feelings for Issei. Still, it would seem that Asia had found someone to love and always be with her to keep her safe and protected, while Irina was looking for someone who was like Issei when they were children before he became a pervert. Kaneko was a tougher nut out of the six since Aphrodite couldn't quite understand why she fell for Issei in the first place. The goddess honestly thought Kaneko wasn't interested in anything besides sweets and food, such a strange feeling. Love is truly a strange and complicated feeling. Aphrodite sighed as she looked at Issei's heart in her hands and could see that Ravel, Kuroka, Kunu, Ross Weiss, and Gasper truly cared about Issei and confessed their feelings to him, to which Issei returned and stayed in touch with them as well. These five still have strong bonds with Issei. I truly do hope that they can help him rebuild his confidence and love him back as he loves them. Aphrodite said as she gasped as she saw a couple more hearts form around Issei's own and connect to him. Huh! Interesting. These have that strange aura I felt earlier. Aphrodite said as she was observing the hearts that formed around Issei and couldn't see their whole person, but the aura was resonating with Issei's own. Interesting. I'll only interfere when I need to, just in case, to protect the one who sacrificed everything. I'll make sure he's never hurt by such heartbreak again. Aphrodite said as she made a promise to herself to protect the heart of the man who was about to enter a fight that he wouldn't imagine. Shinto Tao. Issei slowly woke up from a comfortable sleep. As he looked, he saw that Kazuhana was spooning him like a large spoon, which shocked the fallen emperor. Strangely, instead of pushing Kazuhana away, Issei let her continue hugging him before Kazuhana slowly opened her eyes and smiled down at him. Good morning, Issei. Did you sleep well last night? Kazuhana asked, speaking with genuine concern, which surprised Issei since he had thought the woman was pretending to be kind yesterday evening at the bar before. Issei just nodded in response. Kazuhana could tell that Issei enjoyed being her snuggle buddy, so she at his forehead, got out of bed, and left the room. Let's just keep this between us so Mia doesn't find out, Kazuhana said in a hushed tone before Issei just nodded again before the woman left him alone. Issei was surprised that Kazuhana didn't try to ask for money or anything else, but her actions showed that perhaps he misjudged her. That is one interesting woman, Issei mumbled as he got up and stretched his arms and back, causing some of his bones and muscles to crack. He then headed to the kitchen to see Mia cooking breakfast. She then smiled at him. Ah, hello there. How are you doing this fine morning? Mia asked as Issei smiled and replied to her. Well, I'm doing good, but I do apologize if I was an inconvenience for you and your in yesterday evening, Issei said as Mia shook her head and replied. No, not at all. In fact, I wanted to thank you for what you did for Kazuhana last night. Mia said as Issei was surprised, but before asking what she meant, Mia beat him to the punch. Don't worry. I'm not mad since you remind me a bit like myself when my husband passed away. Mia said as Issei was shocked by this before sensing that Mia had some incredible power built up inside of her. What do you mean by that, Asama-san? Issei asked as he looked closer at her power level. She's definitely on par with a low-tier ultimate class being. Not a Mao level, but definitely strong enough to face a whole army of high-class fighters. Issei could feel her power as a sharp blade capable of destroying probably more than half the city should it be let loose. Mia could tell that Issei was like her as well, a being with so much power yet a broken heart, and a desire to fix himself. Do not fear, Issei. You are always welcome to stay at the inn, Mia said as she set her spoon down and gently ruffled the top of his head. And I am sorry for all you had to go through in your life. You were deeply hurt by a broken heart, yes? Issei was shocked. She saw through him until Mia nodded as if she understood him. I won't ask what happened to you because that would be rude, but I do wish you would stay here. I think this will be a wonderful place for you to be able to live again. Mia said as Issei sighed and pulled out some money before handing it to her. I'll stay here for a week. I don't wish to inconvenience you anymore, so after a week, I'll be gone, Issei said. He then thanked her for the chat until he left the kitchen and almost bumped into Kaguri. Sorry about that. You okay? Issei asked as Kaguri nodded before asking him, Are you looking for work? We could use a new bouncer and security guard at the bar. The pay is nice, and you'd get free drinks on the house. Kaguri said as Issei rubbed his chin, thinking about it before Kaguri handed him a card. Think about it and let me know what you think, Kaguri said. Issei thanked him and took the card before heading to the front door. He left the inn and headed towards an alleyway, where he saw he was finally alone. He summoned his wings and used an invisibility spell on himself. Thank Kami, I can use magic now thanks to the training with the others, Issei said to himself before he took off to the sky and snapped his fingers, transforming his clothes from his casual clothes to his new clothes that are part of his new fashion sense. After Issei's popularity grew, even after losing the boosted gear, Ravel told Issei that he needed a new style since his school clothes just wouldn't cut it, so after taking him clothes shopping, Issei got some new clothes that suited him and also helped him with 3 new styles for battle, casual, and formal. Here's a weekly wardrobe plan for Issei Hayadu, balancing battle-ready, casual, and formal styles. Casual day, dark jeans, graphic red t-shirt, casual zip-up hoodie, sneakers. Issei's battle-ready attire is a combination of functional and stylish elements designed for enhanced protection and agility during combat. 1. Black leather jacket with enhancements, stylish yet reinforced with protective materials, provides resistance against physical attacks and minor energy blasts. Flexible panels for unrestricted movement in battle. 2. High-tech combat pants, form-fitting for agility and flexibility, equipped with advanced materials for enhanced durability. Integrated pockets for carrying small tools or gadgets. 3. Red and black armored vest, adds an extra layer of protection to vital areas. Energy-absorbing panels for defense against magical attacks. Enhances Issei's overall resilience in battles. 4. Lightweight combat boots, designed for agility and swift movements. Reinforced soles for stability during intense combat. Equipped with concealed compartments for small items. 5. Pendant for a subtle touch, doubles as a protective amulet with magical properties. Symbolizes Issei's connection to his strengths and abilities. Aesthetic detail that complements his overall battle style. This battle-ready attire not only serves practical purposes but also reflects Issei's evolving maturity and style in the Sekirei series, combining functionality with a distinctive look. Formal elegance, tailored black suit, crisp white dress shirt, red silk tie for a pop of color, polished black dress shoes, classic watch and cufflink. This diverse weekly wardrobe showcases Issei's adaptability to different occasions while maintaining his style. Issei still kept red in his style, but he now wore a combination of casual, formal, and battle attire. He decided to go with his casual style since he wanted to explore the city merely. However, his clothes had some special enhancements to make sure he could still defend himself in battle, and he needed more time to change his attire for battle. Issei flew to the top of the MBI building and looked around the whole city. He was amazed by how small it looked, but he could tell that this was the start of a new beginning in his life. Issei did go to Shinto Tao to have a fresh start, but not for the reasons he said to Gasper. The truth is that Issei was there because he heard of an interesting opportunity at MBI, and the president, Minaka Hiroto, who was actually a man who made a contract with Azazel a few years ago under Azazel's human disguise, actually reached out to him after hearing about his experience in fights from Azazel himself, so Issei decided to take the job offer. Issei's thoughts were interrupted when he felt a massive blast of ice magic coming from the park. This shocked him, as it was almost close to Sona when she attempted to use ice magic. Issei flew over to the park and saw a small noble behind a man wielding a sword of sorts fighting a woman who seemed to be using ice powers. I already told you I don't wish to go with you, the woman said as he continued to blast more and more ice magic towards the man, who leaped away in the nick of time to protect the noble before he slammed the bottom of his sword into the ground, causing the ground to shake and destroy the ice. It's not a bad deal when you think about it, Akitsu. Come with me and my master, and you won't be broken anymore, the man said as he tapped his forehead. After all, as long as that mark is on your forehead, you'll never be able to find your destined one. Akitsu looked down as if struck in her soul, which made Issei grit his teeth in anger. He had seen that same look in his own eyes when he was broken and doubted himself, but thankfully, his friend saved him, so Issei decided to intervene. I'm afraid I'll have to stop you there, Issei said as he made his appearance known to the three of them before standing in front of Akitsu, shocking her until she saw his eyes that told her to stay back. The man was surprised by the man's appearance before the noble behind him stopped him from speaking. "This man means business, Mutsu. Let me take over," the noble said, and the man known as Mutsu nodded, sheathing his sword before the noble looked at Issei and asked, "My name is Mikagami Hayato. It's a pleasure to meet you. What are your intentions here?" Mikagami asked as Issei could tell this noble was a woman, given her scent, before speaking. "I intend to prevent you from taking advantage of her state of well-being. Tell me, is that how you do things? Break them down with their weaknesses and pretend to care about them when all you desire is their power?" Issei asked, and the noblewoman could tell this man meant business before she replied. "I will admit that, granted, my ways may seem cruel, but I am offering this broken Sekirei a chance to be accepted someplace since that mark on her forehead is her curse that she must bear for the rest of her life," Mikagami said as she pointed to Akitsu. "She is a broken Sekirei, meaning she can't find her destined one, and not finding their soulmate is very cruel to their hearts, so I'm merely offering her a place in my home so others don't try to take advantage of her." Issei didn't understand what a Sekirei was but knew it all came down to Akitsu's opinion, so he turned around and spoke to her. "What is it that you want, Akitsu?" That simple question shook Akitsu to the core since she had been in the park for days and never once tried to form a connection with anyone since the game began due to them only wanting her body or power, which resulted in her freezing them. Akitsu almost considered taking the order from Mikagami, but the boy in front of her stopped her as his words deeply made the Sekirei feel special and comforted in his presence. Looking at his back made Akitsu's opinion change as she could see that this person was a man who didn't know her but still desired to protect her from harm. And the question he asked her broke the camel's back, as she felt something she had never felt before since being broken. Her heartbeat resonated with the men. She could see his soul and tell that although he may appear silent and cruel, he has a kind heart and soul that has been hurt and endured much. Akitsu then knew what she desired, as she took Issei's hand and cupped his left cheek before asking him, "Are you truly asking me for my opinion?" Akitsu asked as Issei nodded his head, not knowing what would happen next, which made Akitsu smile at him. "Then I have made my choice," Akitsu said in a firm voice as she leaned in and at his lips alone, shocking Issei, Mikagami, and Mutsu. The mark on her forehead began to glow brightly, and her aura began to appear as an icy blue. Issei didn't push her away because her power felt comforting, and could feel a piece of his heart, mind, and soul be fixed by the along with feeling the emotions and warmth of the woman in front of him, so he reciprocated causing a massive spike in his power to shock a few individuals. Olympus, Aphrodite was shocked as she felt the massive spike of power from Issei's soul. Then she looked at Issei's soul and saw one of the hearts she couldn't see before appearing as Akitsu. "This aura. That's impossible. I didn't think I'd ever see a Sekirei again after their planet was destroyed," Aphrodite said as she recalled creating a species that was beings of emotion that she, the goddess of love, created to help bring life into others by showering them with love and kindness from a being that may be powerful but desires to feel accepted and loved by their destined one. Aphrodite knew the red string theory was a double-edged sword, but that's why she made the Sekirei to help lost souls find their soulmates, so they could feel complete and loved by their partners. Issei had such a large heart and powerful emotions that Aphrodite could tell that if the Sekirei were on Earth, Issei would be able to heal with not only the ones who still love him back in his home but also the ones who would put the pieces of his heart together. "Now I know that Issei will be able to heal and perhaps even help those who long to be loved as well," Aphrodite said, with happy tears in her eyes, as she saw a glimpse into Issei's future with him snuggling Akitsu in his arms. Akitsu is complete and loved by her husband. Also, another thing to point out is that Aphrodite is a sucker for happy endings in things that involve romance. This could explain why she loved romance anime and shows that piqued her interest. Heaven. Gabriel was shocked as she could feel Issei's power spike up. She wanted to see that he was fine until she felt his soul and heart being repaired as well. This amazed and shocked Gabriel since she knew Issei was doing better after the therapy with her but was worried Issei would close his heart off to others, which is why she was happy that the kind-hearted boy she became the guardian angel of was still in there despite all the pain and sadness he endured with his journey in the supernatural world. "Lady Gabriel? Are you okay?" Jean asked as Gabriel wiped her tears and smiled before replying to the knight. "Of course, Jean. I'm just so happy that my little soldier is opening his heart to others who are healing him." Gabriel said as Jean smiled in response, knowing she was talking about Issei. Well, I guess we'll have to see how he is when we see him in a few months, Jean said. She was happy to hear Issei was doing well, as the two had bonded and seen each other as a brother and sister duo who watched each other's backs. I hope you well, Issei. I can't wait to see how you are doing after a while, since I know a few others want to see you after their assignments are finished, and we can truly relax and rest in peace. Jean said that she knew there were still some issues to work out to ensure that peace could truly be achieved, so we could begin the celebration reunion for a special announcement the faction leaders wanted to give to everyone. Speaking of the faction leaders, Indra was shocked at the vision he had just seen involving Issei Hayato, which made the Hindu god smile a tiny one. He was interested in seeing what would happen at the reunion. 6 months. Only 6 months before this new Issei emerges. Oh, I can't wait to see this. The future really does rule. Mutsu grabbed Mikagami as she was shocked to see this. What's happening, Mutsu? Akitsu's being winged, and we need to get out of here before we're caught in the blast. Mutsu shouted as the duo escaped the fire and icy aura from covering the two. The ING duo continued to share their souls as their auras began to blend. Akitsu's wings appeared as icy ones as their auras began to send a massive shock of power to all of the Sekirei and Shinto Tao as well, causing those unwinged to feel the power that was released from the duo, especially the Ashikabi. Meanwhile, those who are winged sense a powerful force that even surpasses Sekirei 1 and 4, Miya and Karasuba. Even MBI scientists were shocked by the massive spike of power coming from the park until their auras receded to normal. Akitsu and Issei parted lips and stared into each other's eyes before they smiled at each other, as if they had known each other for a long time. Issei Hayato, the Diablo Dragon. Akitsu, Sekirei number 12. This prayer is the ice of my pledge. Shatter the misfortunes of my Ashikabi. The two souls, both broken, have now found solace and love in each other as their hearts heal. Issei and Akitsu then noticed that both Mikagami and Mutsu left the park during the winging process before Issei's phone began to ring. Issei answered it, and was surprised to see the ID number. Shit! It's my job, Issei said as he answered the call and apologized to him. I'm sorry for being late, Mr. Hiroto, but something came up and dash. Nonsense. Do not worry, because this has made it easier to bring you into the game. What do you mean bring me into the game? What exactly is the job you hired me for? Issei asked as he had his suspicions about the job before Minako waved his concerns off. Do not worry. Everything will be explained when you come to MBI. Meet me in my office, and I'll explain what I want you to do, Minako said before he hung up the call, which annoyed Issei slightly. Akitsu stared at Issei with concern. Do you need a hug? Akitsu asked as she spread her arms out, showing off her massive bust pinned down by chains before Issei nodded and hugged the Sekirei, making Akitsu smile as she nuzzled her head into Issei's hair and enjoyed his scent. Thanks, Akitsu. It's my pleasure to tend to you, my Ashikabi. Akitsu let him go, and the two headed towards MBI, unaware that there were other Sekirei who also felt the new Ashikabi enter the game. Izumo-in. Holy shit! That kind of power was even greater than both Miya and Karasuba combined if they were using their Norito. Matsu said as she looked at the energy readings from both Akitsu and Issei Hayato during the winging process. She felt very turned on by the energy output. Matsu had never felt this kind of power before in her whole life, and learning that there was a person this powerful made her think there were beings out there who were probably even more powerful than their species. This idea amazed and worried her. The idea of being around those with incredible power amazed her but also scared her, since if others can take on Miya and Karasuba, then they have a good reason to be scared. I can already imagine the chaos that will come in this game, since this Ashikabi is much different from the others, Matsu said, as she could imagine the other Sekirei and Ashikabi wanting to try to take Issei down. Still, if her readings were correct, then this Ashikabi would be the most powerful and dangerous Ashikabi of all. MBI. Excuse me, but I'm here to see Minako Hiroto. I have an appointment with him, Issei explained. The receptionist looked at the appointments on her laptop and nodded. Ah, yes. Issei Hayato. Hiroto-san is waiting for you at his office, the receptionist said as she handed a pass to Issei before the dragon thanked her and headed to the elevator with Akitsu next to him. The two then headed up towards the highest floor in the building before they ended up in front of a large office with a woman being there to greet them. The woman had a striking presence. Her chestnut hair flowed gracefully down her shoulders, complementing her determined, amethyst-colored eyes. Standing at 5 feet 8 inches, Her athletic build was a testament to both agility and strength. Her attire was clerk attire, but it was more business-oriented than combat-wise. Greetings. My name is Natsuo Ikamochi. It's a pleasure to meet you, Issei Hayadu, Natsuo said as she lightly bowed before showing him to the door. Hiroto-sama is expecting you, so we shouldn't keep him waiting, Natsuo said as she led the two into the office. There were a few chairs in front of the desk where the president of MBI resided, and he smiled at the duo. Ah, Issei. I'm glad to see that you are well. I'm grateful you accepted my offer to work for me at MBI. I was impressed when I heard of your skills from Azazel, who spoke highly of you. Minaka said as Issei was surprised to hear that Azazel spoke highly of him. Still, then again, the fallen governor was a dear friend to him as well as a second father figure in his life who was also there for him when he needed someone to talk to after Dryag died in the war. I'm grateful, though I was hoping to continue my education at Tokyo University, Issei said, as Minaka sighed but nodded. I can understand your desire to continue your education, but I'm afraid I should inform you of something important, Minaka said as his glasses had a glare before it faded away to reveal his eyes with a look of maturity and melancholic clarity, as if he had years of experience walking the earth. I have met many like you from high school who thought they'd be able to make their dreams come true, but there is much more to life than passing tests. Tens of thousands of students have passed their entrance tests this year for the university of their choice. So what? You are uniquely qualified for a position we have. If you accept, your starting salary will be 100 million yen per year, which will not only include bonuses and stock options but also allow you to work in the company as a member of my staff since I can tell you are a smart lad and could use some business experience, so I wish to offer you a job that would not only pay you well but also grant you a position in my business that will greatly benefit you. Are you interested? Minaka asked as Issei looked over at the benefits, and such before looking at Minaka with untrusting eyes before asking, what exactly is this position you're talking about? If it's something like security, then I'm more than capable of dealing with anything that comes my way. Issei said as Minaka laughed with amusement as he replied to Issei. I knew I'd like you, Minaka said before he calmed down and began explaining the position. Issei listened to the position and was surprised to hear that Akitsu is an alien with superpowers called Sekirei, whose human partners are called Ashikabi. Minaka also told him about the Sekirei plan and his role in it as the enforcer of its rules. Minaka also informed Issei that should he accept, he would be part of MBI. Issei was unsure about this, so he looked at Akitsu, who had been quiet the whole time. She then looked at Issei and nodded in response to his unasked question. I will follow you wherever you go. I am yours, and you are mine. Issei smiled despite knowing her for only a few hours, but that had allowed him to see all of Akitsu and vice versa. The two were able to look into each other's souls and memories, which helped them understand that they were similar and would be there to support each other in good times and bad, sickness and health, life and death until death did them part. Issei then looked back at Minaka and replied, I'll do it, but I have my conditions, Issei said as Minaka expected this and gestured for him to make his demands. 1. Akitsu is on the squad, and I decide if the others are worthy of being on the team. I need a team I can trust, not babysit some brats who can't put up a fight. Akitsu smiled at this as she hugged his left arm and took his hand into her own. 2. I'll be staying at a place of my choosing, and communicating with me will be via cell phone or email. Also, I expect a list of the rules of this game. I'm not against killing, but I won't kill for simply pleasure or amusement. I'm not a bloodthirsty psychopath, Issei said as this amused Minaka since he spoke just like how Azazel described him. And finally, this squad will be staying with me. If you agree to these terms, then I shall accept the job. Do we have a deal? Issei asked. Minaka smiled behind his hands before getting up from his seat and walking towards Issei. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You're just like Azazel described you, Minaka said before holding out a hand. I accept. Issei then shook the hand before Issei stood up with Akitsu next to him. So, where are the ones you wanted me to take on the team? Issei asked as Minaka pointed to the left of the office to see 3 women enter. One had pink hair and was dressed in a black kimono with a missing sleeve. One had a mess of wild, unkempt hair and bandages wrapped around her chest and arms. The last silver hair was in a long ponytail, and she was dressed in a black outfit with a long gray coat resting on her shoulders. She was the one who got Issei's attention. She looked at him with an odd grin and slowly sharpened a katana with a whetstone. So you three are the ones the MBI hired to be this disciplinary squad, Issei said, looking them over before humming to himself. Nope, to all three, Issei said as the pink one shouted with disbelief on her face. What? What do you mean no? I mean, you three don't even look like you have any actual combat skills. I've been in many battles and can tell that you three are weaker than me. Akitsu, I can tell, has a lot of power but needs help fine-tuning it. Sure, having power is cool and all, but it's about control, which, sadly, you three don't have, Issei said as he looked at the three of them. Pinky is a close combat type who gets too heated in battle while thinking she can destroy her enemies. She's nothing worthwhile but a bully who tries to make herself think she's strong when she's too scared to admit her weaknesses. Issei said as the pink-haired one bristled like an angry cat before Issei looked at the bandaged one. You seem to be a bit of an airhead, and granted, you seem to be a bit more competent than your friend there. I'm afraid you'll only be in the way, Issei said as the gray-haired one shrugged her shoulders before Issei turned to the last one. And you, my samurai wannabe, are just annoying and too much of a wild card. I have no need for a sekirei who doesn't know what real loyalty is. Issei said as the pink one glared at Issei's back before stomping towards him and jabbing a finger in his chest. You and me. Right now. I'll show you just how strong I really am. Pinky shouted as she glared at Issei before a smile appeared on his face. Okay then. If you can actually make me take you seriously, then I'll consider having you on the team, Issei said before asking if there is a training arena for them. Minaka replied that they could fight on the roof. The group went to the roof. As Issei and Akitsu walked towards the left side, Pinky readied herself to hit that smug look on Issei's face as he reassured Akitsu that he would be fine. I hope your bite is as good as your bark, Pinky, Issei said as Benetsubasa growled at him and charged toward him before delivering a right hook, which Issei dodged with ease. Benetsubasa was shocked by this since humans were not able to see her coming before she tried to strike him with her fists. Don't always aim for the same spots. Use unorthodox tricks to throw the enemy off, Issei said, as Benetsubasa then tried to kick him with a helicopter kick. Issei merely caught her leg and pushed her away. Karasoba and Heihain continued to watch Benetsubasa try to land an actual strike on Issei before Issei allowed her to hit him in the face. But as soon as her fist made contact, the sound of bones breaking echoed on the rooftop. Ah! Benetsubasa shouted as she pulled back her fist and felt her left hand swell up a bit as she was shocked by the results of her attack. What the hell is your body made of? It felt like I was punching a massive steel door. Benetsubasa asked as Issei revealed his scales, shocking the sekirei as Issei had his eyes become that of a dragon. Well, if I were still a human, then I probably wouldn't be standing here. But I lost my human body due to the war, and have been reborn as a Diablo dragon. This is who I am. Issei Hayabu, the Diablo dragon, and I are far more powerful than you can even comprehend, Issei said as he lifted his left arm before sending a punch that not only broke the sound barrier but also blew Benetsubasa a few inches back. She felt the power of the punch as her face was that of pure shock. There's no way. He was a human once? Benetsubasa was shocked as she fell to her knees, defeated before Issei walked towards her. The pink-haired sekirei cried her eyes out as she realized she could never reach that level of power. Her whole life, she desired to become the strongest, but seeing power like that in front of her made her realize her dream was that of a fool. Damn it! Benetsubasa yelled as she slammed her left fist into her ceiling. Why? Why can't I get stronger? Why doesn't anyone want me? I have power, and I am beautiful. So why am I always alone? Benetsubasa yelled as she didn't care about what Heihain or Karasoba would say to her until a gentle voice spoke to her. You can become stronger. The voice said as Benetsubasa looked up to see Issei kneeling on one knee and speaking to her. For you see, I was weak once. In fact, I was the weakest of a line of great warriors. But I didn't let that stop me as I trained hard and had to go through powerful forces to get where I am now. And every time I got knocked down, I continued to get back up. I wish to become stronger to protect not just myself but the people I love and care for. Power is meaningless unless it has a purpose, so I want to ask you a question, Benetsubasa. Issei then lifted her face to look into his eyes before he spoke to her a simple question. Why do you want power? Benetsubasa has always been a passionate woman who loves shopping and fighting and wants to try the finer things in life. However, one thing she truly desires is to be loved by a man who accepts her and cares for her so much that they would be married and have a family. However, Bennett Tsubasa hadn't met any men who seemed to be interested in her because of her fiery personality, and how she was perceived as a boy by others even though she had feminine qualities. The rejections didn't hurt as much at first, but when the 10th one came in, Bennett Tsubasa began to feel like she would just be alone before she saw a message from their creator. My children, know that love is such a powerful emotion, but also know that if the one you wish to become one with doesn't truly reciprocate your feelings, then they are not your destined one. Your destined one is someone who will not just be there for you physically but also emotionally and spiritually. A person who will be there to help you when you hit rock bottom and feel as though you are alone. Their words and actions will help you see that they are your destined one, so be patient and remember that every one of you deserves love. Never forget that. The message hit Bennett Tsubasa's soul as she cried tears of joy and happiness from the words of her creator before smiling to herself as she knew what she needed to do. Train so hard she'll become strong enough to find her destined one and destroy their fears and doubts. Become a pillar of support for them and give them so much love and strength that they'll accept and love you. That is why, on that day, Sekirei 103, Bennett Tsubasa began to train for the day that her Ashikabi would appear and wing her before they became one in body and soul. I want power so I can protect and help my Ashikabi. I wish to crush the stones torturing my Ashikabi so I can be his pillar of support and help him in his troubled times. Bennett Tsubasa said as Issei patted her head as he spoke to her. You remind me of myself. I wished for power to protect the ones I loved, and I still do to this day, which is why I still strive to better myself. I am not perfect. No one is, but if you truly wish to be a pillar of support for your destined one, then come with me and let me help you gain that strength that you so desire, Issei said as he held out a hand for her, which made Bennett Tsubasa's eyes widen. She felt her heart beat so loudly in her chest it would have exploded. It's you, Bennett Tsubasa said as she took his hand and fell into his arms. Then she ate his lips, causing crimson wings to appear on his back. Issei returned it, and Bennett Tsubasa felt safe and warm in his arms. She looked into his eyes and smiled at him. Bennett Tsubasa, Sekirei number 105. The palm of my pledge crushes the stones, torturing my Ashikabi. Now and forever. Bennett Tsubasa said as Issei gently took her left hand and healed it with some magic before looking at the last two, who were amazed and impressed by his power before he spoke to them. I'll be taking Bennett Tsubasa and Akitsu with me. They're part of the disciplinary squad. If you two wish to try and join us, then you'll have to come find me. Issei said as he carried Bennett Tsubasa in bridal fashion as Akitsu followed him before they stopped to see Minaka smiling at him. I'm going to enjoy having you in the games, Issei Hayato. I look forward to them as well, Minaka Hiroto. The two stared at each other a bit more until Issei left the rooftop. Karasoba then walked towards Minaka with a smile of excitement on her face. I see why you wanted him to have the job. It's to strike fear into the hearts of the other Ashikabi, isn't it? We shall see. After all, I am a mere spectator who wishes to see this game be the one that holds the fate of the Sekirei in the palm of the victor's hands. Let's see how he does on his first day tomorrow. Minaka said as Karasoba watched the trio leave, with her eyes looking at Issei as if he were her prey. However, after he displays power, Karasoba's warrior side wants to fight him even more now. Minaka was correct about one thing. This game is going to be a lot more fun. Karasoba said as she walked back to MBI to get to her room for training to clash with Issei Hayato. Oh my. This is unexpected. Mia said as Issei came back and bowed to Mia again, thanking her for letting him stay the night before seeing that Issei had moved across from the inn and paid for one of the houses in the area up front. It was a 2-story building with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a good-sized kitchen, a dining room, a large yard, and a front garden. Issei had told Mia to keep the rest of the money he gave her for a week, and he thanked her for the hospitality. However, he wanted to live in a place that was his own, so he bought the house. He was still invited over to a welcome to the neighborhood dinner at the inn, which was pleasant with a touch of chaos due to his new Sekirei. How in the world do you not topple over? Bennett Tsubasa asked as she stared at Kazuhana's S before the wind. Sekirei giggled at her eyes before placing her hands below her chest and pushed them up a bit to show their divinity, much to Bennett Tsubasa's annoyance until Kazuhana replied to her. It comes with a healthy diet, plenty of sleep, and milk to help my girls get to where they are now, Kazuhana said as she noticed Issei taking a peek at them before turning away. Kazuhana then leaned into Issei's ear, squishing Bennett Tsubasa's head into her chest, and whispered into his ear. They're all yours if you want to take a peek, Kazuhana said before a ladle flew in the air and knocked her off both Issei and Benetsubasa, who began to take big gulps of air after being suffocated by the boobs of destruction. No illicit or UL activities while we have dinner, Mia said. Kazuhana pouted but nodded as she returned to her side. This amused Kaguri before she spoke to Issei. Hey Issei. If you are still looking for work, my workplace is hiring a security guard for my second job. Second job? How many do you have? Only 2. I work as a bouncer but also as a host at a host club sometimes. It depends on my boss since I have a lot of admirers in both of them. Huh. I'll have to think about it since it sounds like it could be fun, Issei said as Kaguri nodded before Akitsu fed Issei some food, which he didn't mind, and this made Akitsu smile as she was enjoying his warm aura while Kaguri smirked at the two of them. They really do make a nice couple. Maybe Issei can help me find my destined one as well, Kaguri said, unaware that his body was slowly getting warmer when Issei's left hand brushed against Kaguri's hand. All in all, it was a good first day for Issei Hayato and Shinto Tao. Meanwhile, back in Ko Town, so your brother told you about the special announcement for the reunion in 6 months? Akino asked as Ria smiled and nodded. Indeed. Surzex told me that since the war is over, the time of peace is now underway. Surzex said that a special ratings game is in order for not just the biblical faction but also our other allies who will join as well in the Azazel Cup, a special ratings game that will be for all of us and our allies. This event means that we can not only participate but also help our boyfriend get stronger since he has unlocked his sacred gear. But he could still use some more training. Rias explained as Akino agreed that Greg needed some more combat experience since he did wield incredible skills with the sword. But he also tended to be a bit of a brute who relied too heavily on muscle more than brains. It was a bit of trial and error. But Greg realized that he couldn't always barrel his way through all attacks despite his talent for being a tank when taking multiple physical or magical hits. I can't wait to tell the others about this. Let's go tell them now, Akino said as Rias nodded in response before the two left without realizing that they weren't alone, which made Kiba sigh in relief as he had to send a letter as soon as possible to Surzex. So he went towards Rias's desk in her room as he then took a special stamp that Rias used to mark very important letters to be sent immediately. Hence, he used it on the letter and watched it teleport to Surzek's domain. I just hope he gets it before the reunion because if the other leaders hear about it, then who knows what will happen, Kiba said as he left the room quietly and was shocked to see Gasper standing in front of Rias and Akino using her sacred gear, before gesturing Kiba with her hands to leave now. Kiba thanked the vampire as he left the area, letting out a sigh of relief. He was glad he had accomplished his mission before apologizing to Issei for breaking his promise to him. Issei was relaxing on the back porch, sipping some of the tea that he found relaxing since it helped calm his nerves before sighing to himself. Now, this is how a morning should be enjoyed. I'm glad I let Akitsu sleep in after we had a few too many sake drinks trying to outdrink Kazuhana. Issei chuckled at the memory of last night's events at the Izumo and during the small party. Akitsu drank so much sake she became an affectionate drunk who also wanted to show Issei what was under her chains, which resulted in Benetsubasa feeling down that her bust was inferior to Akitsu's, especially due to Akitsu accidentally almost suffocating Benetsubasa in her S as well due to her wanting to snuggle with either Issei or Benetsubasa, resulting in Issei getting blackmail material for the future. On the other hand, Benetsubasa was a drunk who wanted to snuggle with Issei and begged him to give her head rubs and compliment her beauty instead of Akitsu. This amused Issei, so he told her he liked her bust the way it was, which made the pink-haired Sekirei so happy she gave Issei a bunch of sloppy yes on his face. Eventually, Issei was sober enough to take the two drunk women to their home, which made Mia giggle as both she and Issei were the only ones who weren't drunk on sake. Kazuhana, Yuzum, and Kaguri were passed out as well after trying to drink Kazuhana and Akitsu out. Ugh. I feel like I went 10 rounds with Karasuba and had my ass handed to me 11 times. Benetsubasa groaned as she walked towards Issei, clutching her head before Issei smiled at her and handed her some tea he poured for her. Benetsubasa thanked him as she drank the tea and felt relief as her headache stopped banging her skull as hard as it did before. Feel better now that you can think clearly? Issei asked as the pink-haired Sekirei nodded before Akitsu joined them. Surprisingly, she seemed to be fine despite her massive intake of sake yesterday. I'm surprised you are. You're not feeling loopy after how much you drank yesterday. Are you feeling okay, Akitsu? Issei asked. Akitsu sat next to Issei and placed her head on his left shoulder, moaning in relief as she enjoyed his warmth. I am now that I'm with my Ashikabi. Thank you, Issei-sama, but what will we be doing today? Akitsu asked since she was ready to serve her Ashikabi before Issei replied to her question. The first order of business is that we begin training. I can tell each of you has unique talents, but you are skills unrefined, and you lack actual combat skills, Issei said as he stood up and walked into the backyard before turning to them both. Akitsu, Issei said as Akitsu stood up and waited for her master's orders. You're an elements type user with ice, meaning you can not only freeze your opponents but also create powerful ice weaponry and shields to defend yourself. The problem with being an elemental type is that you have no combat skills in hand-to-hand or a weapon, which is why it's best to help you control your ice powers since you haven't been able to use them for so long, and then we'll move to the training in weapons and hand-to-hand combat. Akitsu was in awe at the explanation since she didn't expect her Ashikabi to be able to create a training strategy to help her improve. Still, then again, her Ashikabi did call himself a Diablo dragon and was far stronger than any human she had seen, so it was no surprise her Ashikabi was special. Now, as for you, Benetsubasa, Issei said. Benetsubasa was worried until Issei began. You have trouble controlling that rage of yours, which allows your foes to take advantage of and manipulate you in a fight. You have excellent fighting instincts and are able to adapt, given our spar yesterday at MBI. However, you must learn how to control your emotions and your actions since a real warrior doesn't just train their body but their mind as well. There's more than one way to win a fight without muscle, so we'll be training on having you prepare for the unpredictable. Benetsubasa was surprised by the compliments and strategy for her training. For the first time since she was on Earth, she felt heard and seen, as well as understood. Heihain had told her that she gets too angry, which has almost led to her being beaten by many Sekirei, so this training might be able to help her improve mentally and emotionally. Issei then snapped his fingers, and his clothes transformed into combat attire that took on the form of a battle kimono, much to the surprise of Benetsubasa and Akitsu, as Issei looked like he was really serious about this training. Now then, come at me. Working together is also part of the training, Issei said as Akitsu and Benetsubasa charged at him, ready to train with their Ashikabi. Town. Rias smiled at the girls in the clubroom with their boyfriends. Aquino and Greg were sitting next to each other on the couch as she began the meeting. I would like to thank you all for coming. I wanted to explain that in 6 months, the factions will have a special reunion to celebrate the new era of peace, as we have also planned a special ratings game. Rias said, much to their excitement, as she then continued. This is why I wanted to ask all of you if you wish to participate in my peerage and fight by our side. Knowing that if you choose to do so, then you'll have to be ready to train. Greg smirked as he wrapped an arm around Aquino, who smiled at the gesture before replying to Rias. I'm always down for training, and trust me, with me on the team, nothing can stop us, Greg said with a cocky grin since he was from a royal family that not only had a bloodline of powerful warriors but also that Greg was a very strong fighter since he was extremely skilled at a young age in combat, and was able to unlock his sacred gear. Sure, there's a sacred gear tailored for Greg, Berserker's Fury. Berserker's Fury takes the form of a pair of gauntlets and greaves infused with ancient runes, pulsating with an ominous red glow. When activated, it grants Greg immense strength and speed, allowing him to overwhelm his opponents with raw power. Additionally, it enhances his durability, enabling him to withstand even the most devastating attacks. It made him so powerful that he could clash with high-class fighters, but he was nowhere near Seirag's level in terms of raw power or Issei's strength as a Diablo dragon. Despite the immense power of Berserker's Fury, Greg's pride as a warrior prevents him from fully embracing its potential. He refuses to undergo proper training, relying solely on his natural talent and brute strength. As a result, he struggles to control the overwhelming rage that accompanies the sacred gear's activation, often causing collateral damage and endangering those around him. His stubbornness hinders his growth as a fighter, preventing him from unlocking the true potential of Berserker's Fury. Rias and Aquino have been helping him try to understand that training is necessary for him to learn to control his power. Granted, it felt like they were pulling teeth, but luckily for them, Greg agreed to train for the ratings game with them. Zenobia was excited as her boyfriend Makoto Itu, a nice boy who was very nice and didn't mind getting down in the sack and banging each other since Zenobia could tell the boy was weak but enjoyed training him, which led to the two becoming closer. Makoto asked Zenobia out, aware of her relationship with Issei, before Zenobia said yes and enjoyed the date far more than any other date Issei took her on, which led to Zenobia losing interest in Issei as she spent more time with Makoto, and even enjoyed having with him. That honestly made Zenobia feel very happy that someone enjoyed having as much as she did, unlike Issei, who denied her proposals even after he recovered from his trauma with Rainer. Irina was happy for this as well, since she would be able to fight alongside her new girlfriend Ayano, a beautiful young woman of average height with long, thick crimson red hair styled in a Harem cut and amber eyes, smiled next to her, excited about clashing with powerful knights to prove her worth to her family. Ayano was a magic sword wielder from the church and was amazed by Irina's kindness and inner strength, but was jealous of her being around Issei, since Ayano didn't see Issei as someone worthy of such power or Irina due to him being a commoner and a pathetic human that had no actual talent, unlike her who was skilled and superior to him in every way, which is why she was excited about getting in between Irina's and Issei's relationship and severing it by proving she was a better choice for a suitor than Issei ever could be, which worked. The two dominated the Kendo Club as the two most skilled sword users. Asia's boyfriend was, in fact, the tallest and scariest of the group. He was Santiago Ramirez, a young man of medium build with a confident demeanor. He has dark hair that falls messily over his forehead and piercing blue eyes that seem to hold a hint of mischief. He typically wears sleek, dark clothing that accentuates his mysterious aura. Despite his enigmatic presence, there's a sense of charm and charisma about him. Santiago is intelligent, cunning, and fiercely independent. He values loyalty and honor above all else, often going to great lengths to uphold his principles. He has a mischievous streak and enjoys outsmarting his opponents, but he also respects strength and admires those who display it with honor and integrity. Santiago comes from a long line of powerful sorcerers known for their mastery of dark magic. Despite his family's reputation, Santiago chose to forge his path, seeking to use his abilities for the greater good rather than personal gain, so he traveled the world, honing his skills and seeking worthy opponents to test his abilities against. Asia was amazed to learn that Santiago possessed a wide range of magical abilities. He specializes in shadow manipulation, able to bend darkness to his will to conceal himself, create illusions, and even strike his enemies with tendrils of inky darkness. Additionally, Santiago is skilled in elemental magic, particularly fire and lightning, which he can summon at will to unleash devastating attacks. When the two began dating, Santiago's ultimate goal was to become a true king among sorcerers, respected and feared by all who opposed him. However, he also sought worthy rivals to challenge him and push him to new heights of power. So when he heard of Issei Hayato, a fellow king in his own right and a man he respected, Santiago wished to clash with the Red Dragon Emperor to test his strength and honor to the fullest. Santiago and Asia were an odd duo. Although Santiago may appear dark, moody, and terrifying, he is a gentle and caring person who wishes to become a king who will one day rule his peerage and kingdom with respect and care. He has no desire to rule through fear and bloodshed, as that is the way of a tyrant, the opposite of who he wishes to be as a king. Finally, Kankyo was munching on her cookies as she enjoyed the company of her boyfriend, Takemaki Hanagaki, and she was the one who approached him after seeing the poor senior getting the shit beat out of him and saw that while he had some spirit, it didn't matter since the guy was mostly crying and whining about being weak, which led to Kaneko taking Takemaki under her wing to train him and teach him how to defend himself, which didn't end well since no matter how hard she tries to train him, Takemaki would be and say he wouldn't punch a girl, which annoyed Kaneko. Now some will wonder how the two got along. Still, it was really Takemaki's presence outside of training and fighting, since he was a nice guy, granted, but someone who was a good person to talk to until Kaneko and Takemaki began to date. Slowly, Takemaki gets more comfortable around Kaneko and is amazed by her skills as a fighter while being her cheerleader basically instead of a real man. But his compliments make Kaneko smirk at Takemaki as the two continue to date. Kaneko forgets about Issei since she feels more drawn to Takemaki and doesn't know why, but she still enjoys his company. The guys were excited about this, but Kiba rolled his eyes inwardly at the girl's new boyfriends/girlfriends. He only respected Santiago as a man. He didn't seem to know about Asia's relationship with Issei or that Asia was using him to cheat on Issei. This made the Gremry Knight feel sorry for the dark magic caster, since he could tell that Santiago was a good man, one who respected Issei and held no ill will toward him. The others, on the other hand, annoyed Kiba since Greg says he will take his training seriously. Still, The most training he sees Greg do is use his sacred gear and charges in headstrong, thinking he can overwhelm the enemy with his power and ego as a warrior. Kiba honestly saw him as an arrogant and weaker version of Seirag, and what annoyed Kiba the most was when Greg constantly challenged him and Gasper to a fight that he lost before calling out Gasper for being a weak man and Kiba, a disgrace of a knight due to them using their powers more than their strength. Ayano was similar to Greg since Kiba was annoyed by how prideful and arrogant Ayano was, saying she was far better than Issei in every way and pretending to be the perfect girlfriend to prove that she should have been the Red Dragon Empress instead due to her skills and reading about the great possessors of the boosted gear. Kiba enjoyed kicking her ass in sparring matches as a way to release his anger towards her, and Gasper didn't seem even to enjoy being around her, as he avoided the girl who disrespected the man who saved his life and helped him the most out of everyone in the Gremory faction. Gasper didn't even know what Zenobia or Kaneko saw in their boyfriends since both Makoto and Takemaki avoided any training and seemed to only talk their way out of situations that would result in more training. Also, Kiba knows of Makoto's reputation as a playboy since he acted sweet and nice around women he was interested in. Still, in reality, he was only into having with them until he got bored and moved on to another girl who tickled his fancy. Takemaki, on the other hand, was the opposite since even Gasper was at least braver than the wimp due to Issei inspiring him to become stronger. Takemaki did have some courage, but that was ruined when he broke down into tears and lost in his fights with Kaneko and Gasper. Honestly, sometimes I'm glad Issei didn't stick around since Santiago is the only one who would have truly been friends with Issei. Makoto would make Issei feel sorry for the girls that dated that sick bastard Ayano, and Greg would annoy Issei with their arrogant attitude toward him. As for Takemaki, Issei would just pity the fool. Kiba said in his head as he was glad that Tsubaki wasn't here since her opinions towards Ayano and Greg annoyed her, especially Makoto, whenever the bastard tried to ask out the Citri Queen even though she told him that she was dating Kiba. Gasper was wearing the girl's uniform, and she sighed in her mind that she wanted to see Issei and leave the room. Before Santiago noticed Gasper's discomfort, he excused himself from the room and took Gasper with him to get a drink. Gasper was surprised by this, as Santiago got her some tomato juice before buying himself a coffee while he spoke to her. "You miss Issei Hayadu, yes?" Gasper was silent as she nodded her head before Santiago continued. "I don't blame you. It's a shame since I would like to apologize for not knowing about his and Asia's relationship before she asked me out on a date," Santiago said as Gasper did a spit take before looking at Santiago in shock. "Why, you know that they are engaged?" "Not at first, due to my needing to learn more about the Red Dragon Emperor's relationship with the girls. Asia approached me, and I went out with her before seeing that she was hiding something from me whenever I asked about Issei Hayadu. This led me to use a sleeping spell on her and look in her memories to see that she was content with cheating on Issei," Santiago said. His eyes glowed green with rage, and his shadow magic began to leak from his body before he calmed down. "However, I intend to use Asia Argento to meet Issei Hayadu, apologize for not knowing about the witch's behavior, and ask him to fight me in an honorable matchup. My wish is to compete with the Diablo Dragon and become a king that is feared yet respected, just like how I heard about the White Dragon Emperor and the Red Dragon Emperor's actions towards their comrades," Santiago said as Gasper was surprised by the man's presence and smiled, knowing she had an ally in the shadow magic user. Before they finished their drinks, they headed back to see Kiba sighing in relief as he was waiting outside the clubroom. "It's nice to see you guys getting along well. The meeting just ended, and I couldn't have taken it without you guys." Kiba looked mentally and emotionally exhausted, which Santiago could understand since he had also looked at the people the Gremory girls were dating. If he was being honest, he didn't see them as true warriors or even future kings. "I do apologize, but I noticed that Lady Vladi couldn't handle being in there for a moment longer, so I took her to get some rest before entering the lion's den again," Santiago said as Kiba thanked the shadow user before the trio became a duo. Santiago wished them luck returning home as he entered the clubroom again. Kiba and Gasper then went back to the Hayadu residence, then asked Kiba, "Have you heard anything back from Surzex and the others about the situation?" "No," Kiba replied as Gasper sighed, knowing this would have happened until he continued. "But I do know that eventually they'll get the letter. Surzex and Grafia care about Issei as if he was already family and earned their respect, so I can see them getting it as soon as possible." "Yeah. For now, at least, we do have an inside man to get the scoop on the others. How is Tsubaki taking this, especially after that needy bitch of a man that kept flirting with her?" Gasper asked as Kiba laughed at her word choices to describe Makoto before replying. Well, Tsubaki is still pissed at Makoto for trying to get her to cheat on me, which led to Tsubaki almost wanting to break his manhood for thinking she could be used as some call girl, Kiba said as he wanted to let Tsubaki destroy the bastard but knew it would mess with the peace process that the factions are working towards. You're not wrong. I do wonder how Issei is doing back in his new home, Gasper said, wishing she could have gone with him before Kiba patted her head. Look on the bright side. Issei will call in 2 weeks and let us know how he's doing. In fact, I have a side bet with Saji that Issei would have another girlfriend in Shinto Tao. Heh. I can already see that happening, and Issei means to be friends with them before possibly starting a relationship with them. Gasper said as Kiba laughed a bit to himself, not noticing a person was watching them in the background as they ended a recording. Azazel will be pleased to know that Issei is well, but the other girls are not so much. They said as they looked at the file they prepared and sighed at their evidence. Who would have thought the girls the boys sacrificed so much for had resulted in them betraying her? They said as they then vanished into the darkness, hiding their presence while doing so before understanding the ramifications that would occur should his evidence be made public. Unlike my foolish brother Kanla, who sided with that idiot Chow Chow and his wannabe heroes, I don't use our family's power for selfish purposes. They said this as they emerged from the shadows to reveal themselves as Santiago. Before he saw his clone deal with Asia, the clone nodded his way as the two swapped places, with the clone taking the information to Azazel via shadow. Asia, are you ready to head home? Santiago asked as Asia smiled and nodded, but Santiago wasn't fooled by the smile that irked him since he saw Asia as a traitor and a disloyal lover to someone who gave her so much and asked for nothing in return but her happiness. Yes. Want to stop for some dinner along the way? Of course, Santiago said, mentally rolling his eyes at Asia's attitude before walking alongside her. Enjoy your happiness while it lasts since it's only a matter of time before you lose everything that you were given, Santiago said, as his right eye shone emerald momentarily before it vanished just as quickly as it appeared. Man, that was some amazing. Makoto said to himself as he looked at Zenovia, who was pleased with this moment. Makoto looked at his phone and smiled at the other women who caught his eye. Maybe I can get some of the Citri devils to have a night with me. I really want to deflower Ruruko's bubbly ass and ram her until morning. Oh, maybe even Ravel since I can bang a princess while Issei's gone and left them all alone for the picking. Makoto said that he was not ashamed of dating any girl that tickled his fancy since he sees women as fish in a pond, and he'll catch so many women that they won't get enough of him and want to be with him. Now, this is how you become a harem king. Feelings? Love? Who cares about that when you can satisfy them with just and manipulate them? Makoto said as he couldn't understand how Issei had all of these beautiful women and didn't even bang any of them, instead wanting to build a real relationship with them and some minor trauma. But that was dumb in Makoto's eyes as he saw them as an opportunity for a sugar mama to live a life of luxury and not work hard except in bed. Unfortunately for Makoto, he is unaware of his shadow gaining emerald eyes as it then returns to normal with no one the wiser. Greg and Ayano were sparring while Irina, Rias, and Aquino were in the kitchen making dinner, but they stopped and chatted about Issei. So, do you and Irina intend to tell her parents about your relationship? Greg asked as Ayano smiled and replied, Hell yeah. Issei literally was never a suitable choice for a boyfriend since he's got some looks but doesn't know shit about being a boyfriend since he basically forgot Irina and didn't even try to contact her and thought she was a boy. How stupid can one boy be? Also, he isn't even worthy of being a dragon. If anything, I should have been the Red Dragon Empress instead of that idiot boob lover. Ayano said as she planned on proposing to Irina before the ratings game to rub it in Issei's stupid face and enjoy his despair while Greg chuckled and replied, Same here. Honestly, how can Surzeka's and Rias's parents be okay with Issei? He isn't even a royal, unlike me, and I can treat Aquino like a princess as well. I mean, sure, Issei helped with her relationship with Barraquil, but that doesn't matter in the future when you have to be looking out for them. All he's good for is sacrificing himself, and that's how the world works. Losers and perverts like them bowing down to superior people like us. Agreed, Greg and Ayano said as they began training again, unaware of the dangers they were going to face as they had a spy record the whole thing as well. Grigori, Azazel's office. Azazel was shifting through paperwork as he was excited about the ratings game, especially since he was able to get the name to be the Azazel Cup after an intense battle of rock-paper-scissors with Zeus. Oh, what a happy day for him, indeed. Surprisingly, Azazel didn't seem fazed as he saw a figure begin to appear from his shadow as Santiago stood up from the ground and bowed before the fallen governor. Azazel, it's an honor to be in your presence, for I have some news you and the other leaders may be interested in concerning Issei Hayadu, Santiago said as Azazel's writing stopped. He heard the name of his second son figure before looking up at Santiago. He could tell the name was serious. And what news do you have for me? Azazel asked. Santiago smiled wickedly, pulled out a file, and handed it to him. Oh, just some very scandalous evidence that would shatter the alliance with the biblical faction and their allies if it was made public, Santiago said as he watched Azazel open the file. Slowly, his eyes began to widen in shock and confusion as he saw the Gremry peerage girls, excluding Rosweiss, with different guys and in different backgrounds, such as a love hotel, a fancy restaurant, and a few other places Azazel recognized as places Issei took the girls to on their dates. What is this? Azazel asked as his aura was concealed, but his face showed Santiago that the fallen governor had now given him his full attention. Then pulled out another file. Oh, I think you know full well what this is. And to better explain it, I have videotaped proof and evidence that the Gremry girls in the file have betrayed their fiancé and lied to their families as well as their new lovers, Santiago said as he was going to enjoy the next 6 months tormenting the fools from the shadows. Azazel clenched his fists, as he then pulled out his cell phone and called the number he had on speed dial. Surzix. Call Michael, Kuroka, Griselda, and Gabriel. We need to talk, and I'll take care of Baraquil, Azazel said as he then ended the call and looked at Santiago. I assume you'll be attending the meeting as well? Of course. My master sent me in his place to ensure that the evidence was sent to you, Santiago, and I do not care what happens to the girls or their lovers, but we do care about Kiba and gasped Vladi. Which is why we wish for no harm to befall upon them, Santiago said as Azazel smiled at the Shadow King before patting his shoulder. You are already becoming more of a king each day, Sombra. I hate that nickname you gave me ever since you showed me that show. Oh, come on, it's hilarious. No, it is not. Azazel and Santiago argued that the Shadow King refused to be compared to some equestrian villain. And now back to Shinto Tao. Not bad for our first day of training. You both did much better than I thought, Issei said as he relaxed in the hot tub on the back porch. Akitsu smiled despite having a couple of bruises on her face from Issei's punches. I feel like I can't walk anymore, Benetsubasa said, her legs in pain, until Issei's phone went off as he received the email. Ah. The rules on the Sekirei plan, Issei said as he began to read them, and could tell that they were simple. 1. Ensure there is no forced winging. 2. Prevent innocent bystanders from being dragged into fights. Includes no killing innocent people or ashikabi. 3. Keep damage to the minimum. 4. And finally, registered ashikabi and Sekirei cannot leave the city. Issei was content with the rules before receiving another email from Surzex himself. He then opened it up. Dear Issei Hayadu, I want to inform you of the special surprise that will happen in the next 6 months. To celebrate the new peace that shall come, the Alliance leaders have agreed to a special ratings game with members of the Supernatural Society. Due to your accomplishments, you and 49 others have early access to the rules as well as the invitation to prepare to participate in the selection process. The rules of the game are simple. 1. Anyone can register as a king. 2. A king can register anyone on his team as long as the targeted person isn't on another team. 3. Devils with multiple evil pieces will be treated as one piece for this tournament with the exception of gods or god level in power, which instead will be counted as 2 pieces or 8 pawn pieces. 4. Each team starts with 0 points, and they would accumulate more points by playing matches. 5. If one wins, one will gain 10 points, if one loses 0 points. Suppose there's a draw, a professional committee of the ones present will decide how to distribute the points accurately. 6. The 32 teams with the highest points will advance to the professional round. 7. The winning team's wish will be granted as long as it isn't on an incredibly large scale, or reignites the war. 8. For registration, one needs to go to the underworld. There, a special set of pieces will be given. Made in conjunction with every faction, devils, angels, fallen, Norse, etc. The team name needs to be proposed there. 9. A phone with an app will be given to you during the time of registration. Everything will be done through the app. Every change in the team needs to be announced before their next match. News about the tournament, announcements, leaderboard, everything will be done with the app. 10. The limit for entering the tournament is the day before the first official match. 11. If one loses a match justly 2 times, whether in a row or not, then they will be kicked out of the tournament. I look forward to seeing what you bring to the tournament, Issei Hayato. Farewell, and I can't wait to see you again from your favorite big brother, Surzex Lucifer. Issei smiled at the email as he could imagine Surzeka's joy sending this and wondering what he'd do in the tournament. Well, girls, it looks like things are going to get more fun, Issei said as he left the hot tub and used magic to dry himself off. After resting, get changed, and we'll go on patrol. We should make sure that those who know of the Sekirei don't try to break the rules or force-wing them, Issei said as Akitsu and Benetsubasa nodded, excited on their first day with their Ashikabi. And things will truly get interesting from here on out. Shinto Tao was a calm town before the Sekirei game began, which led to many people trying to find a Sekirei and get them winged to their persons so they could enjoy the benefits of a sugar mama. However, it was challenging because the Sekirei had supernatural physical abilities that made others run away. However, the more persistent ones were more observant and waited for the right time to strike. Just like the one who's forced-winged Yashima, the hammer Sekirei, to his person. Come here, you bitch! Tanigawa Junichi, Yashima's Ashikabi, said before Yashima meekly nodded her head before approaching a beaten-up person who was protecting another Sekirei, who was shivering in fear as she saw her destined one defeated before they could. Yashima bit her lip before lifting her hammer above the soon-to-be Ashikabi's head. She looked at her fellow sister once more before apologizing. I'm sorry, Yashima shouted as she was about to bring down the hammer, quite literally, until someone stepped in. I'm afraid I can't allow that, a voice said, making the 4-person group look around to find Issei Hayato standing at the end of the alley, waving at them with his right hand and his cell phone out on his left one. My apologies for interrupting your attempted murder, but I'm afraid I'm here to turn you both in for not only violating the rules of the Sekirei but also for breaking the law, Issei said in a calm tone which made Tanigawa growl at Issei before shouting him. Who do you think you are, kid? Go to your classes or something. I'm not breaking any of the damn rules of this stupid game. Tanigawa shouted as Issei was silent before flipping open his phone, taking a picture of Tanigawa, and sending it to someone. A few seconds later, the phone rang, and Issei answered it. He then spoke to the caller. Is he the guy? Issei asked before nodding his head as if agreeing with the caller. What about the hammer Sekirei Yashima? Issei asked as the caller replied to him, making Issei nod his head. Yashima, Sekirei number 84, the hammer Sekirei. Sekirei type. Weapon user. Yashima is a weapons specialist who fights using a hammer. She has enough strength to lift her massive hammer, swing it around, use it to block attacks, and generally fight at a rapid pace despite its weight. She also displays immense speed and enhanced reflexes. As with all other Sekirei, her Norito boosts her powers, which is somewhat impressive, but unfortunately, without her hammer, she's defenseless in fighting back against her enemies. Very well. Thank you, sir. Issei said before ending the call and pulling out a badge. My name is Issei Hayato, Ashikabi of the disciplinary squad, and we're here to bring both Tanigawa Junichi and Hammer Sekirei Yashima in for questioning, violating the rules, and attempted murder. If you come in peacefully, then we won't have to resort to force, Issei said, holding out his MBI badge and making Tanigawa scoff at him. Ha! You expect me to think that that crazy old fart on TV chose a kid to do his dirty work for him? What a laugh! Tanigawa laughed before looking at Yashima. Bitch! Get rid of him, or I'll make you pay, Tanigawa ordered, stiffening Yashima's movements. She still nodded, obeying her Ashikabi's orders before lifting her hammer and bringing it down on Issei, who didn't even flinch. I'm sorry! Yashima cried out before the hammer landed on her target, and then she heard a loud sound. Clang! Yashima was shocked by this since she didn't see anything metal on Issei before the hammer began to move from underneath her. She then tried to pull her hammer back until the hammer's head, which was down where Issei stood, began to crack. The metal of the hammer began to bend inwards until the hammer's head was shattered into pieces. What? What the hell? No human could catch the bitch's hammer! Tanigawa shouted in rage as Issei appeared with his right hand upwards and didn't look dazed by the hammer before cracking his neck. Now can we discuss this like mild-mannered people, or do I have to get rough with you? Issei asked as he snapped his fingers, only for Yashima to be pinned by Benetsubasa, who held her on the ground before leaning in her ear. Try anything, and I'll snap your neck, Benetsubasa said, causing Yashima's eyes to widen, recognizing the Crimson Sekirei, who was well known for being violent and aggressive in battles, before Tanigawa let out a yell as he was pinned to the wall with a sheet of ice. At the same time, Issei walked over to the downed Sekirei, who was helping her Ashikabi up before smiling at them. "You're safe now. Leave and be happy with each other," Issei said with a small smile, making the Sekirei thank Issei for saving her Ashikabi's life, as did the Ashikabi thank him. The two then left while Issei smiled at their retreating forms before turning back to Tanigawa. He pulled out his phone again and tapped the number he called before putting it on speaker. "My boss wishes to speak to you," Issei said before holding the phone out for a hologram of Minaka Hiroto, who didn't look amused. "So this is the violent delinquent who's been causing a stir in my game. Such a bad sport this one is, wouldn't you say, Issei?" Minaka asked while both Yashima and Tanigawa were shocked to know that Issei Hayado actually knew Minaka Hiroto. "Indeed he is. Do I have permission to execute this little shit and cleanse the world of his filth? Is the girl still bound to him? I'm afraid so." "Then do it. As you wish," Issei said before snapping his fingers, making Akitsu nod. She formed an ice sword in her hands and walked towards Tanigawa before Issei spoke to him. "Any last words before Akitsu ends your life?" Issei asked as Tanigawa began to beg. Wait. Is it money you want? I can pay you double, but not triple, the amount Minaka is paying you." "Ha! Can you pay him even a tenth of what I'm paying him?" "Ahaha. Oh, it never ceases to amuse me how simple-minded people like you, Tanigawa Junichi, act when your pathetic, miserable lives are being threatened by someone superior to you in all ways. Also, you enjoy torturing other people with your Sekirei just so you can assert what little pride you have and punish Yashima, who follows your orders after the shit you put her through, such as force-winging her to your pathetic existence," Issei said before snapping his fingers as Akitsu sliced off the pig's head before it rolled on the ground. Yashima's eyes widened as a white van pulled up to the alleyway before Issei began to speak to them. "Clean this up. The disciplinary squad will take Yashima to MBI for medical treatment. She's out of the game," Issei said before the men nodded as Benetsubasa put some cuffs on her that weren't necessary since Yashima was weak without her hammer but didn't struggle as Benetsubasa and Akitsu led her to MBI while Issei was chatting with Minaka on the phone. "How did he know about Yashima's location? You said you always monitored their location to ensure that the people who wing them adhere to the rules. Unfortunately, it is an annoying bug known as CO Keiru. An old friend of my former colleague and friend Takahito Asama. But really he's just a freelancer who mooches off your landlady when he's low on money because CO thought he was tough shit, he can make good money. So he took data from you while he worked at MBI? Correct, and it's possible that idiot sold that information so he can make some quick cash. He's like a cockroach that's hard to find in a city, so if you find him, punch him for me since I would have fired his ass years ago if it wasn't for Takahito wanting to help his friend get a job and off the streets. Gladly. This guy sounds like a douche. But mind giving me the information on any other Sekirei who he sold out so we can keep an eye on them? Of course. Luckily, Akitsu was actually one of them, but since she's yours now, then that takes care of her. However, the other ones besides Yashima are Sekirei 11 and 12, Hikari and Hibiki, and the Raiden twins, who can manipulate lightning. They've already winged themselves to him. Why would they do that? Apparently, since he was their handler, they fell for him and thought he was manly or some nonsense like that. You can't be serious. Deadly? Okay then. Who else besides them? Sekirei 13, Aim Bane. He's a fist-type Sekirei, so be wary of him since he's a bit sadistic and gets a sick sense of pleasure from beating up women. I don't know what happened to this guy, but you do not want to show mercy to him, especially since he is very bloodthirsty. Not as much as Karasuba, but still a bit crazy, understandable. Judging by his profile, I'd say he almost reminds me of either Diodora or Freed. A sick freak who gets a kick out of controlling other women as if they're toys for them to take advantage of for their sick pleasure. Huh. Azazel told me about those two when you and your group dealt with them. The next one is someone who you are already familiar with since they live right next door to your home. Oh yeah? Who? Sekirei number 10 Yuzum. Issei's eyes widened during the walk, and he bumped into a pole almost until Akitsu saved him. Thanks, Akitsu, Issei said, smiling. Akitsu led him the rest of the way before Issei spoke back to Minaka. So you're telling me that Yuzum is a Sekirei? I take it you didn't know. I honestly thought she was just a cosplayer with all those costumes she wore yesterday. Oh, come now. Surely you sensed a lot of power within both Kazuhana and Miya, yes? All of the residents of the Izumo and our Sekirei, who are very powerful, but Miya is the one Sekirei who is the strongest one out of all 108 Sekirei. You kidding me, right? Nope. So you don't seem to be so surprised. Why is that? When I first saw Miya, I could tell she had a lot of power within her, but I didn't seem to sense the others. I guess that Mia's aura overwhelmed their aura so that I couldn't sense theirs at the party. That makes sense since Miya used her aura around her home to ward off intruders and other Sekirei, which is why the northern area of Shinto Tao is a feared part of the city. I see. Thank you for that bit of information. So what's the deal with Yuzim? Shit. I know what that's like. Watching someone you love die right in front of you even after you tried so hard to save them, Issei said, thinking back to when he and Asia first met, and the other times he fought tooth and nail to try and save her from Diodora kidnapping her before he thought she died and entered Juggernaut Drive, almost killing himself for the girl's life. Would you like the others? Yes. Give them to me back at the main office. We're almost there anyway with Yashima, Issei said before ending the call. Akitsu still enjoyed walking beside him, hugging his right arm and holding his hand on the same arm before Issei spoke to her. How is she? Issei asked, making Akitsu smile before she replied to him. She seems to be submissive since she's not fighting back. Why is that? Akitsu asked before Issei replied to her question. Stockholm Syndrome. She created feelings for her master in order to survive being with that bastard. Now that he's dead, Yashima no longer has to play the role to survive. She'll need to mentally recover before even entering the game again, so we should make sure that she's taken care of before Minaka thinks of sending her back out, Issei said as they were coming up to MBI before the trio took Yashima to the medical department within the building. Akitsu and Bennett Tsubasa stayed outside the main office while Issei gave Minaka his report on Yashima's condition and her unfitness for the Sekirei game. That is why I believe she should be given time to mentally and physically recover from this event so she can not only find someone who actually is her destined one, Issei concluded. At the same time, Minaka looked over the report before nodding his head. I can see why you are asking for her to be given time to recover. Normally, physical cases can easily be taken care of, but for mental cases like these, it damages the Sekirei, Minaka said before stamping the approved stamp on the suggestion. I do have a question, however, about the winging process between Ashikabi and Sekirei. How does it work, since if what you told me is that the bond between an Ashikabi and Sekirei is tied together, so why didn't Yashima suffer the consequences of her Ashikabi being killed? Issei asked since he was told a bit about the winging process but didn't fully understand it. Ah. Now that's a different story, Minaka said before pulling out a remote from his desk and tapping the button to reveal a large flat-screen television that showed what looked like a slideshow. The winging process is easy to understand if explained correctly. So let's begin with how a Sekirei is terminated from the Sekirei plan, Minaka said as he began his presentation. There are two ways to terminate a Sekirei. The first is through defeating them in physical combat by inflicting a sufficient amount and severity of damage, while the second option is for an opponent to touch the crest at the nape of their neck and recite their Norito, Minaka said as Issei began to watch the slideshow with the presentation. The crest then disappears, indicating termination. A Sekirei whose crest has disappeared cannot function. The severity of physical damage to a Sekirei is categorized into 5 levels, going from 1 to 5, the former being the most benign and 5 being the most severe. Damage level 5 is effectively the actual death of the Sekirei, Minaka said, surprising Issei before the show continued. According to Takahito Osama, my old friend, as long as terminated Sekirei don't approach their death as living creatures, they can be put to sleep after special surgery depending on the level of termination. They are then taken to a specialized facility where their body is kept alive. But a living body does not mean the Sekirei isn't dead. The loss of their crest is equivalent to death for a Sekirei, Minaka said, shocking Issei as he saw the videos before the show continued. There are 2 ways to fix these broken bonds. One involves being the last remaining Ashikabi and using the assembled Jinki. The second is a result of Sekirei number 108, Kusano. Her Norito is capable of healing the broken bond between Sekirei and reviving them, Minaka said as he ended the presentation before Issei asked. But that still doesn't explain how Yashima wasn't affected by the death of her Ashikabi. I'm getting there. Be patient, Minaka said before he continued. Now, as for Yashima's situation, it actually has to do with the force winging that occurred between her and her former Ashikabi. For you see, if a force winning occurs, then there is a 75% chance that the bond between them will be so weak that it can be easily destroyed when either is defeated. And after looking at their relationship, it was guaranteed that Yashima would suffer no backlash from her Ashikabi being dead. But if they were able to make a strong bond, then it would be the same if we dealt with any other duo. I see. What will happen to Yashima now? We'll keep an eye on her here and make sure she recovers from her injuries. But I may ask Azazel for some help since I have a feeling that she may need to go with him to recover for her mental health. That would make sense since she's definitely not going to want to re-enter the game after this. May I still see her? Of course. But only if she wants you to, since she might be a bit mad you killed her beloved destined one. Fair point, Issei said before Minaka pulled out a small folder and handed it to him. These are the sekirei who were sold to the public. Most of them are good people, but a few bad birds are in the flock, so be wary of them. I trust you'll be able to handle them if they cause a problem? Minaka asked. No problem. Plus, it'll be fun since it was actually nice being able to help someone after being out of action for a while now. I'm glad that Yashima will recover. Hopefully. Issei said before thanking Minaka. He then left the office to see Yashima waiting with the duo in her normal clothes before she looked at Issei and asked, Is he really dead? Yashima asked with nervousness in her eyes and voice before Issei walked towards her and pulled her into a warm hug, making Yashima's eyes widen before Issei whispered into her ear, He's dead. He can no longer hurt you, Issei whispered, causing Yashima's eyes to water. She then began to cry into Issei's shirt, while thanking him for saving her from the nightmare. Issei didn't say anything else, he just patted her back and comforted the damaged soul. He could tell that if he had been saved back when Issei was still his naive, perverted self after Rainer killed him, then Issei was positive he could have become the same as Yashima. A soul that was betrayed and hurt when all they desired was love and acceptance. Akitsu looked at her, and could tell that Yashima was similar in a way to the one who was once broken and was possibly forced to live a life without feeling love until her Ashikabi came in and saved her from that loneliness within her icy heart. Issei and Yashima then separated before speaking to her. Somewhere out there is your destined one, and I have faith you'll find them. Do you really mean that? Yes. I do. Issei said before that she had a good feeling that Yashima would find someone who would love her and give her the warmth she deserved for the girl. She was nothing but sweet and kind, albeit a bit shy. The disciplinary squad then left MBI, with Yashima thanking the three of them for saving her before saying a prayer to the creator of their species. Aphrodite, the weaver of bonds, please look after Issei Hayadu and his heart. He is a good man and saved me from a fate worse than death. Please watch over him and guide me to my true destined one. Yashima said as she prayed to the name of their creator. At Olympus, Aphrodite smiled as she saw the Sekirei's soul before smirking at the name the Sekirei called her by due to her embodying the aspects of love and bonds, which were what made the Sekirei special. Well, that and their powers they were gifted. Aphrodite then looked at the hearts of others before her eyes widened at the one whose heart was resonating with Yashima's own heart. The goddess then smiled at them before connecting their hearts and waited for the two to meet. I wonder how the King of Shadows will react to seeing Yashima? Aphrodite said, amused by the idea of the king having a Sekirei as a wife and queen, with said King of Shadows. Santiago felt a warm sensation enter his heart, while with Azazel before the fallen governor got off the phone with a friend of his from Shinto Tao. A Sekirei? Oh, of course, I'd be happy to take her in. But are you sure you're okay with this since it might mess with the game? Azazel asked before hearing a response from his friend. Okay, I'll send my associate over to bring her over, Azazel said before ending the call and turning to Santiago. This caused the Shadow King to sigh, knowing Azazel wanted something. Yes? I need a favor, Azazel said, causing Santiago to sigh. He knew this had to do with the call, but little did Santiago know he'd be getting 4 special girls from just one trip to the same town that the Diablo Dragon resided in for the game. Now, back to the Diablo Dragon. Do you think she'll be fine, Issei-sama? Akitsu asked before Issei replied to her. I have a feeling Yashima will be just fine and that she'll find her destined one sooner than later. Call it a gut feeling, Issei said before Bennett Tsubasa stopped in front of Issei as she readied herself for a fight. HM? What is it, Bennett Tsubasa? Someone's at our home. And whoever it is, they're not from the Izumo Inn, Bennett Tsubasa said as she gritted her teeth before Issei calmed her down by patting her head. We don't pick fights first. We'll see who they are and what they want, and if they want to fight, then we'll give them one. Issei said before the trio continued to make their way to their home to see three people standing at the front. The first was a woman with short, distinctly fringed, and spiked gray hair and violet eyes, who is usually seen wearing red half-moon glasses. She wore a long and elegant light purple outfit similar to a corset that has frills around the neck and under her large S and a belt secured around her waist. A side slit runs down her outfit from the thigh down. The loose covering of her hand has a purple strip running across it. The second was a dark-skinned sekirei with jet black hair and violet eyes. To complete her black attire, she wore a bikini top beneath a small hooded shawl, a buckled sarong, a choker, wristbands, and leather knee-high, heeled boots. Finally, the third one was a woman as well, but it was smaller since she was a short and petite female with short, slightly messy yet straight purple hair and olive-green eyes. She wore a ruffled white blouse under a long black dress that framed the blouse and left a box-like cutout, exposing the blouse around her chest. Ribbons are a prominent part of her ensemble, and she wore several purple ones, including those on her hair and over her S level to her collarbone. She additionally wears dark heels and long white gloves that reach her elbows. "Hello there. May I ask who you three are and why you're in front of my home?" Issei asked, appearing a bit stoic. He made sure his voice was cold to intimidate the intruders, who worked on the gray-haired librarian and small maid girl, while the dark-skinned one smirked at him. "Apologies for loitering, but might you be on the disciplinary squad Ashikabi, Issei Haida?" the dark-skinned one asked while Issei raised a brow. "You know me? Ha! Know you? I've been trying to find you in the shadows all day after watching your introduction to the game," the dark-skinned woman said before pulling out a phone and showing a video of Issei training with Bennett Tsubasa and Akitsu as well as the execution of Yashima's Ashikabi, Issei Hayadu. The disciplinary squad's Ashikabi has made his mark as the Ashikabi of the North due to his powerful duo of sekirei, and showing that he can match the superhuman sekirei. "Everyone has been commenting on how you're not human and the like," the woman said before giving Issei the phone, who was surprised by the video before reading some of the comments. "This guy is clashing with the sekirei as if it's nothing. What does he do? Does he not skip leg day? Also, that execution was flawless. The bastard deserved it since I knew that creep and wanted to help her but didn't know how without him sicking her on me as if she was some dog. I'm surprised since he looks no older than 21. How is he that strong? Ha! I bet the sekirei are going easy on him since a human cannot clash with sekirei." "Amusing," Issei said before giving the phone back to the woman. "I take it you have some business you wish to discuss with us?" The dark-skinned woman smiled with glee as she nodded before introducing herself. "Allow me to introduce myself. Sekirei number 57, Yahan, the Shadow Sekirei. It's a pleasure to meet you, Issei Hayadu," Yahan said before the others introduced themselves. "I am Sekirei number 101, Oriha, the Chakram Sekirei," Oriha said as she curtsied to introduce herself. "And I am Sekirei number 22, Kocho. I'm not a fighter, but what I lack in muscle, I make up for in intelligence," Kocho said, fiddling with her glasses before Issei snapped his fingers as if recalling something. "Now I remember where you are. I saw your file, and you are one of the only two who use technology to fight, right?" Issei asked, making Kocho smile as she nodded her head in response. "Why yes. You are correct, Hayada-sama. I wish to offer my services to you before my counterpart, Matsu, approaches you," Kocho said before Issei patted her head. "Don't worry. I honestly didn't know about Matsu being a sekirei until today, but I figured she couldn't leave the inn for another reason, so I'd be happy to have you on the team," Issei said with a smile, making Kocho feel happy after feeling the energy spike from when Issei released Akitsu from her chains. Kocho did research and hacked into areas of the digital world that not even Matsu could access. This allowed her to learn more about Issei Hayada's life, his school life, family, where he grew up, friends, and quirks. She even found out that he was someone she had been following online for a while now, the Red Dragon Emperor. Due to Kocho not being part of the disciplinary squad, she was able to practice expanding her powers. When she saw a crimson figure enter the social media, she found out about the Red Dragon Emperor and his many battles as well as his TV show, which was very popular in children's shows. Kocho was amazed by the personal interview of Issei Hayadu and was so invested in him that she even donated some money to his show and appeared as an anonymous caller for the show when the underworld press was speaking to the Gremmery peerage individually about the after effects of the war and how they're helping out with the loss that occurred in the factions. So when Issei answered her call, his response was to help Kocho confirm her desires with Issei Hayadu. Excuse me, Issei Hayadu. I've heard of your incredible feats, but are you worried about what's occurred after the war, with the damages and losses on all sides? Issei pondered this question before replying to the caller. You are not wrong. Many lives have been lost due to the war, and Trihexa was no easy opponent, unlike the many others I've defeated, and if I'm being honest, I was afraid I was going to die, but you're the Red Dragon Emperor. Doesn't that mean you aren't afraid of death? What kind of question is that? Of course, I'm afraid of death. I've already died once when I was a human due to naivete and arrogance to the supernatural world, but there's something that scares me more than death. The look on someone's face when they're filled with despair and fear. I know I'm a bit reckless, but I also know that if I didn't do what I did, then those children would be dead, along with their families. I also know many good people I know, such as Riser Phoenix, who gave his life to protect his little sister when she was about to be killed. I heard about that, but it wasn't your fault. Riser knew what he was doing and… No, you don't understand. I knew what Riser was up to, and before he died, he told me to look out for Revel. I know that his loss hit his family hard since I only knew Riser for a few years, but when we started as enemies, we became good friends, and he changed into a better man and king. What is my mantra? Living a life with no regrets. Yes, I know that I have power, but I'm not arrogant enough to think I'm invincible. That's why I live my life to the fullest, look forward to tomorrow, and wish to help the factions repair the damage and rebuild their homes so they can continue with their future and live a life with the ones they love. Thank you, Hayadu-sama. You confirmed that you are as I thought. I'm honored that you still wish for me on your team, and I promise to give it my all, Kocho said with confidence, making Issei smile at her before letting the three girls into their home. Yahan was a bit surprised to see that the house was very spacious and clean before sitting on the couch across from Issei, with Akitsu and Bennett Tsubasa standing at their sides. Oriho was amazed by the tidiness of the house before sitting on the couch next to Yahan while Kocho decided to stand up for the meeting/interview. Issei leaned back in his chair before speaking to them. So tell me, what do you bring to the table? I already have an elemental user and a fist user who are very skilled and are getting better with the training I am providing for them. Kocho already has a secure position since having one of the two strategists is not only a good fit for my team, but she can also assist me as a second-in-command for strategies for the other Sekirei, Issei said, making Kocho feel warm and confident that she could assist her Ashikabi and, even better, rub it in Matsu's face that she had the best Ashikabi of all while she remained stuck at the inn. Yahan felt slightly intimidated by Issei's presence before swallowing her spit and began. Like I said before, my powers are shadows. My fighting technique revolves around stealth and strategic use of my surroundings. Using the shadows, I can teleport to any location and perform surprise attacks. However, my skills in unarmed combat are average among Sekirei, mostly fist-type users, so to make up for this drawback, I use this, Yahan said as he summoned a curved dagger, which impressed Issei since it looked as though she could wield it in conjunction with her teleportation abilities. While using both her power and daggers, Yahan can easily overpower and confuse enemies. Impressive. You definitely fit the role of an assassin, but I have to ask, have you ever had any actual training when you were born? Issei asked, making Yahan sheepishly twirl a piece of her hair in her left hand before replying to him. Unfortunately, no. Issei was quiet at this before nodding. I see, Issei said before looking at Oriha. And based on your title when introducing yourself, that makes you a weapon user, correct? Oriha's body stiffened as she was called on before nodding in response. That is correct. I don't have much experience fighting, and my skills are in far-ranged attacks, Oriha said before Issei closed his eyes as if he was thinking about something. After what felt like hours when it was really just a few minutes, Issei opened his eyes again. From what I understand, your situation is that you are not as powerful as a single-digit Sekirei and have tried to improve your skills, but it seems you don't truly know how to improve yourself. Is that what I'm hearing? Issei asked before Oriha and Yahan nodded in response. Then I only have one thing to say to you three, Issei said before his eyes met theirs. Shall we seal this with a? Yahan, Oriha, and Kocho were surprised by this before Issei explained his intent. The purpose of this interview was to see what kind of person you three were before learning of your abilities. I have yet to read the files on all of the Sekirei, so I do not know about their personalities, fighting styles, and such, which is why I wanted to see your true thoughts in my home. You can learn a lot more about a person when looking into their eyes and what a little fear can bring out. My apologies for that, but I had to make sure you weren't overstating your experience and abilities, since I've seen people who were very arrogant in combat and boasted about their skills only for them to come up short in actual battle. Issei said that the three Sekirei were amazed by this explanation before thinking he was someone like the legendary Sekirei number 1. So shall we seal this with A? Issei asked before Kocho went first. The librarian was nervous until their lips met, making Kocho moan. She felt weak under his aura, and her wings appeared to be light gray. By the blessing of my Ashikabi, the obstruction that blocks my path will be cleared, Kocho said before collapsing in the chair because her knees felt like jelly after the from her Ashikabi. Yahan was at next, and the dark-skinned beauty moaned because she was a bit enthusiastic in her, using her tongue to invade his mouth. From the shadows of my Ashikabi, my darkness shrouds all our enemies in our way. In the void between worlds, our bond is forged, Yahan said as she felt her shadow connect with her Ashikabi's own shadow. However, she suffered the same fate as Kocho's since her knees were jelly and soft as well. But unlike Kocho, who was panting with a red apple face, Yahan was smiling with a bit of tint in her cheeks. Yeah. Now that was A. Yahan said before she watched Issei gently Oriha, who slipped her arms around his neck as if they were snakes before Oriha began to moan a bit as the chakrams began to float and spin as if resonating with their owner until they ended. These flying gears represent my pledge. Cut away the enemies before my Akishabi, Oriha said before Issei asked Kocho about the phrases that they said after being winged. What are the phrases you and the other Sekirei say after being winged mean? WL, in our culture, a winging process is actually similar to marriage, so in Sekirei terms, we are married now, Kocho said, making Issei's body stiffen before hearing that word until a cool embrace brought him back from entering that part of his mind. Akitsu looked at Issei with concern and worry before ing his lips, causing her wings to appear once more while Issei felt comforted by her presence. Thank you, Akitsu. I apologize for my reaction. I was just taken by surprise. It is understandable, Issei-sama. There's no need to call me Sama. We're a team, a family, and if what Kocho said is true about your culture, you're my wife as well, which makes us equals, Issei said, making Akitsu blush as she placed her head on his forehead. The two looked at each other once more until they shared a deep that made all of the other Sekirei in the room wish they were in Akitsu's place instead. Oh! My mark is making me feel so hot right now and begging me to be Ed again, Bennett Tsubasa shouted in her mind. Oh my! So this is how his aura feels after winging 5 Sekirei. No wonder many other Sekirei in the area nearly wet themselves with this aura near them. It feels like being wrapped in a blanket of fire that protects you from harm, Kocho said as she analyzed the aura Issei was now radiating and how it was even larger than any other Ashikabi in the city. Shit! I want to jump him right now and ride him to next week. Does he have any idea how turned on I am right now? Yahan asked herself as she felt weak being near the aura while Oriha wished to please her destined one in bed and shower him in love and vice versa. Eventually, they ended with Issei seeing their reactions to the. He was surprised as his heart and soul felt warmer and lighter for some reason. Is this what you meant when you said there are those who would heal my heart, Aphrodite? If that's the case, then you are right. My mind, heart, and soul are feeling freed from the fear I have in them, Issei said as he felt the love of his Sekirei comfort him. Issei then thanked Akitsu before he opened a portal in front of him and reached into it, pulling out a black box that seemed very special and protected since there were chains on it. Issei whispered some words in a language that even the Sekirei couldn't comprehend, as the chains were released from the box before Issei opened it. And now for the next item of business, Issei said as he revealed the contents of the box, a chess set. However, one piece stood out among them all, the king piece, which seemed to be more of a dragon. It had a golden crown and strange markings on it, similar to the boosted gear, before Issei picked it up and smiled at it. This is a very special gift that my brother, Wydre Gotch, the dragon of domination and partner who was a part of me before he saved my life, left for me, Issei said, as he revealed his dragon wings, surprising the 3 new Sekirei before Issei spoke to them all. In 6 months, there will be a tournament filled with powerful people from all over the world, and I wish to enter this tournament and show the strength of my peerage and myself. So I want to ask you all a question, Issei said before asking the question. Do you wish to join my peerage? The 5 Sekirei were surprised by this, but Akitsu then walked towards her Ashikabi and placed a hand on his shoulder. If we accept this or not, then will you still be our Ashikabi? Yes. I don't want to force you into this decision unless you wish to join my peerage. It's your choice, not mine, Issei said, making Akitsu smile once again before replying to him. Then allow me to be the first to join, Akitsu said before Issei smiled at her and pulled out a bishop piece, holding it out to her. Akitsu, do you accept the position of becoming my bishop and will fight by my side? Issei asked, Akitsu's soul screaming at her to take the position before Akitsu nodded. Akitsu, the Isekure, accept this position and shall fight by your side, Issei Hayadu, my Ashikabi, and savior, Akitsu said before the bishop piece glowed as it then entered Akitsu's chest, causing Akitsu's eyes to widen before she rushed to the backyard until her aura exploded as her body began to transform into something else. Akitsu's voice and eyes covered the entire backyard as her body began to grow scales on her arms and legs, claws appearing sharpened and ready to slice through her foes. Her wings appeared on her face before solidifying as actual wings, and finally, her forehead bore the mark of the dragon symbol that was on the bishop piece. The other 4 Sekirei were shocked by this, but Akitsu came back, appearing as a dragon. She had Ashikabi's right cheek and rested her head on his chest. I am honored by this opportunity, and I am ready to stand by your side, Akitsu said before the other Sekirei accepted their positions. Benetsubusa became the first rook, and the other 3 became the first 3 pawns of the Diablo Dragon's peerage. The transformations of all 5 Sekirei caught the attention of some Sekirei and Ashikabi who saw the footage due to a certain Sekirei of wisdom who was amazed by the transformations and her body feeling like she was standing near a flame that was so powerful it spread to the entire northern area of the city. Kazuhana and Yuzum were shocked by this, as their marks began to resonate with the aura, while Miya and Hamura felt differently from the aura from Issei's home. Hamura felt like his flame was increasing in power and size due to the flame Sekirei beginning to become more powerful and a bit heavy on top. Miya may be the strongest Sekirei of all 108, but her aura resonated with Issei's as if the heart within her desired to go to Issei and become his Ashikabi so they could heal each other. Miya also saw Takahito in front of her, and he told her that it was okay for her to heal and find someone who could truly love her as he did and someone who could truly understand her pain. Karasuba at MBI Tower felt a powerful aura surge, which made her heart soar at the idea of fighting against Issei Hayadu since she had to restrict herself from going to Issei and clashing with him as he was leaving MBI Tower due to her battle maniac side wanting to fight with him right then and there. However, his aura was much higher now, and the fact that he was able to do something to the Sekirei that made them even stronger than before excited Karasuba to no end. Yes. This is what I wanted. An Ashikabi that can truly make me feel this way and can give me a battle worth fighting, Karasuba said, feeling her heart desire for battle while Minaka watched this and sent the footage to Azazel. This is incredible. This is phenomenal and can help the Sekirei grow even stronger and help them exceed my expectations of how strong they could become now. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The boy will truly become the greatest Ashikabi in this game, and I have very little doubt that he'll lose the Sekirei game, Minaka said, recalling Azazel putting down a bet that Issei would be the one to rise to the top. By the way, how is your associate doing with Yashima and the Dark Trio? Sombra? Oh, he's taking excellent care of Yashima, and the Dark Trio are really enjoying their new Ashikabi and his training. It is such wonderful research that makes me excited for the future Azazel Cup. I'm still invited, right? Of course. What are best friends for? Thank you. It will truly be an honor to see such a spectacle involving not only powerful beings from all over the world but also the Sekirei. Indeed. This Sekirei game has taken a turn, and it's not even the second phase yet. Indeed. That's why I'm glad you sent Issei my way. I knew he would be just the wild card I needed in the game. Someone to mess with the power play and possibly become the one to achieve my dream. The one who controls the fate of the Sekirei race, and the one who stands as a god among men. Minaka said, excited about this development, since Azazel told him about the pieces that Issei had and what they were capable of before the game master was excited to see them in action. The Sekirei plan was still in Phase 1, but Minaka felt that it would soon change to Phases 2 and 3. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.